Ladies and gentlemen, a few housekeeping notes and announcements before we begin. We're still expecting viewers to join us, therefore, we're giving them a minute or two to log on. Kindly note that we request our viewers to minimize all disruptions. This includes a stable internet connection with minimum 10 Mbps to fully enjoy this virtual event. Do also feel free to share the live proceedings and drop us a comment to show your support towards MIDA Batik Week 2021. There will be a lucky draw as well at the end of our event, so do stay put. You might be the lucky one. Thank you. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Batik Week 2021, celebrating the theme Revitalizing the Malaysian Batik Industry. Batik Week 2021 is a collaboration between Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA, and Malaysian Batik Association, Yayasan Budi Penyayang, Kraft Tangan Malaysia, and the Federation of Malaysian Fashion Textiles and Apparel, FMFTA. This week-long virtual engagement, ladies and gentlemen, aims to embrace the adoption of IR 4.0 technology in batik making, as well as to deliberate upon making the batik industry eco-friendly. Yang berbahagia Datuk Bahria Muhammad Kamil, Deputy Secretary General Investment, Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, Yang berusaha Puan Nori Abdullah, Chairman of Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, Yang berusaha Encik Ahmad Khairuddin Abdul Rahim, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Investment Development, Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA, Yang berbahagia Dato' Lila Muhammad Ali, President of Malaysian Batik Association and Chief Executive Officer for Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, Management of MIDA, Heads of Government Agencies, Presidents of all associations, FMFTA members, Batik entrepreneurs, Dato Sri, Dato, Datin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are immensely grateful for your unwavering support and for taking time off from your busy schedules to be with us here today. I'm Tamina Kausji, and I will be your MC, taking you through all of today's virtual proceedings. Before we proceed, let's now play the Negaraku, Malaysia's national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, now the moment we have been waiting for is here. Without further ado, it is now my honor to welcome Encik Ahmad Khairuddin Abdul Rahim, Deputy CEO Investment Development, MIDA. On behalf of MIDA CEO, Encik Ahram Abdul Rahman, to deliver the opening speech for MIDA Batik Week 2021. Encik Ahmad Khairuddin, the virtual floor is yours.
Yang berbahagia Datuk Lokman Hakim Ali, Secretary General MITI, Yang berusaha Ms. Nori Abdullah, Chairman of Yayasan Budi Penyayang, Yang berbahagia Datuk Leila Muhammad Ali, President of Malaysian Batik Association and Chief Executive Officer of Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, ESCO members, councils, affiliates, respective speakers and moderators, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. On behalf of Mr. Arham Abdul Rahman, CEO of MIDA, allow me to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the Batik Week 2021. I'm very pleased for this admirable joint effort by Malaysian Batik Association, Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, Kraft Tangan Malaysia, and the Federation of Malaysian Fashion Textiles and Apparels with MIDA in organizing these programs. Fitting the theme of revitalizing Malaysian batik industry, it is a privilege to be among the distinguished audience of reputable officials, batik experts, and major industry players today. I'm very pleased to note that 23 industry experts and companies will be sharing their insights and constructive thoughts in this 5-day program. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia has been resilient amidst the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. A total of 107 billion ringgit worth of approved investments in various economic sectors was achieved in the first half 2021. Of these, foreign investments represented 58% or 62 billion ringgit, while domestic investment accounted for 45 billion ringgit or 42%. The approved projects will be generating over 44,994 jobs across manufacturing, services, and primary sectors. As the world moves towards the endemic phase, governments continue to review economic policies to stay relevant. The 12th Malaysian Plan outlines measures to reset the nation's economy to build a more resilient economy. The 3 themes under the 12th Malaysian Plan are set to, number 1, restore the momentum of all sectors while accelerating the development of high potential industries. Number 2, strengthen security, well-being, and inclusivity of the rakyat. And third, advance sustainability through green growth, consumption, production practices, ensuring environmental protection towards United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDG. In this context, industry growth depends upon stronger and comprehensive ecosystem with the right talent, skills, and innovation. Industry 4.0 technologies will be necessities for both the front end as well as the back end operations. We at MIDA are intensifying our efforts to promote high quality foreign and domestic investments. These include a one-stop center and business traveler center to expedite approval of business travelers' entry into Malaysia for ease of business movement while maintaining public health safety, and also a dedicated project acceleration and coordination unit or PACU to assist investors in application submission and implementation phases of the approved projects. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia has joined the global trendsetters in niche textiles and apparel wear. Malaysia's mature and well-established textile and apparel industry provides growth potential in diversified value-added products and higher end of the global value chain. In the period of 2017 to June 2021, MIDA approved 122 textile and apparel projects with total investments of 3.174 billion ringgit that would generate 7,538 new jobs, including skilled positions for engineers, specialized quality controllers, and skilled technicians. As for the Malaysian batik industry, it has evolved from a traditionalist position of a communal craft to now becoming a brand and identity feature of the nation. This cottage industry is also part of conservation and preservation of our country's heritage, as consistently been advocated by the government. The nature of the industry also embodies to the environmental, social, and governance ESG principles. The government continue to promote and incentivizing small-scale batik manufacturers through, number one, pioneer status with income tax exemption of 100% on the statutory income for a period of 5 years. And number two, investment tax allowance of 60% on the qualifying capital expenditure incurred within 5 years of project commencement. In addition, the automation capital allowance, ACA, is encouraging companies to adopt automation in manufacturing processes. The textile industry can be considered 200% allowance on the first 4 million ringgit expenditure incurred within years of assessment 2015 to 2023. Furthermore, the investment allowance RA option for year assessment 2020 and 2022 is available for companies which incurred capital expenditure on expansion, diversification, automation, or modernization. The textile and apparel industry are determined to recover from the consequence of the low demand during the pandemic. But the entrepreneurs too face fluctuating prices, limited access to capital loans, lacking business outreach in competitive markets, and inadequate skilled workers as they cope with increasing costs of raw materials and competition from low-cost producing countries. Acknowledging such predicaments of domestic businesses, the government is pursuing companies to automate and modernize in their bid to reduce costs and improve efficiency to compete better and diversify their operations into new product and niche markets. Financial assistance in the form of matching grants to automate and specific skill training can be considered for eligible manufacturers. Please do engage our MIDA officials to explore the facilitation options. I hope this virtual week-long event will bridge the objective to promote batik while embracing new technology without changing the uniqueness and authenticity of the traditional techniques. We should also emphasize on exploring contemporary abstract and venturing motifs from Sabah and Sarawak. I encourage each one of you to engage actively on how we can continuously promote the industry and instill a positive and competitive environment among the stakeholders in Malaysia. Before I end, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my gratitude to Malaysian Batik Association, Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, Federation of Malaysian Fashion, Textile and Apparels, and also Craft Tangan Malaysia for collaborating with MIDA to make this event a successful one. On that note, thank you and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much, Encik Ahmad Khairuddin. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to invite Yang Berusaha Puan Nori Abdullah, Chairman, Yayasan Budi Penyayang, to deliver her remarks on the occasion of MIDA Batik Week 2021. Yang Berusaha, the virtual floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Lokman Hakim bin Ali, Secretary General Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, Yang berusaha Encik Arham Abdul Rahman, CEO Malaysian Investment Development Authority or MIDA. Yang berusaha Puan Najihah Abbas, Director of Building Technology and Lifestyle Division, MIDA. Yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Tan Tian Poh, Chairman Federation of Malaysian Fashion, Textile and Apparel, FMFTA. Yang berbahagia Datuk Lila Muhammad Ali, President of Persatuan Batik Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to address all of you on a subject very close to my heart. Malaysian batik was always discussed with a lot of passion in our home. My late mother, Tun Indun Mahmud, was concerned that Malaysian batik was a dwindling art form, fast being replaced by batik from other countries. And she was cognizant of it being a traditional economic activity, especially for our people from the East Coast. She decided that she would work through Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, our foundation, that she established to rekindle the appreciation, development, and promotion of batik as a symbol of our national heritage. Garnering the support of friends and batik experts, she established the Malaysia Batik Crafted for the World movement. Numerous programs and activities for the revitalizing and advancement of Malaysian batik were meticulously planned and implemented with several key objectives. They include to create awareness and instill recognition for this craft as part of our cultural heritage, to actively involve and engage batik craftsmen, and very importantly, to specifically encourage Malaysians to wear Malaysian batik. From these efforts came her brainchild, the Piala Sri Indon Batik Design Competition, named after her. The PSE is a prestigious national competition which has generated many batik talents from around the country. The PSE has impacted batik development in Malaysia in more ways than one. It has inspired the production of new motifs. It has called for research in methods for batik production. It has propagated and promoted green batik technology and the diversification of batik products, just to name a few. For the last 19 years, textile and other design students, fashion enthusiasts, as well as batik makers have looked forward to participating in the PSE. Unfortunately, the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic made it impossible for Penyayang to organize the PSE in 2020 and 2021. Hopefully, we will be able to resume bringing you the PSE soon. Personally, for me, as well as Penyayang, the PSE is a legacy that must live on for all that it has been able to achieve and all that it can still do for batik. I would like to thank MIDA for inviting me to share some thoughts on the significance of batik as our heritage. We at Penyayang are glad that MIDA and MITI chose to work with us. Coincidentally, our CEO, Datuk Lila Muhammad Ali, is also the president of the Malaysian Batik Association. The synergy has made it possible for us to do our little share to assist the Technology and Lifestyle Division of MIDA under the able leadership of Puan Najihah Abbas to contribute to the implementation of this meaningful Batik Week. I particularly look forward to hearing about entrepreneurs and other stakeholders investing in providing technology to improve the process of batik production. There are also opportunities for investing in the diversification of batik products, as batik need not necessarily mean only textile for making apparel or clothes. I'm of the opinion that Malaysian batik is ready to embrace technology and excited about the potential in innovation. In conclusion, I would like to thank MIDA and MITI for having Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia on board in your venture to garner investment for the development and growth of the Malaysian batik industry. Congratulations on your effort to revitalize Malaysian batik. I end by assuring MIDA and MITI that Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia will be with you in your efforts to revitalize the Malaysian batik industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang Berusaha Puan Nori Abdullah. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now proceed to the much-awaited keynote address. delivered by Datuk Bahria Muhammad Tamil, Deputy Secretary General Investment for the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI. On behalf of Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Lokman Hakim Ali, Secretary General of MITI. Datuk Bahria, the virtual floor is yours.
Yang Berusaha Puan Nori Abdullah, Chairman of Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia. Yang Berusaha Encik Arham Abdul Rahman, Chief Executive Officer of MIDA. Yang Bahagia Datuk Leila Muhammad Ali, President of Malaysian Batik Association and Chief Executive Officer of Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia. EXCO members, councils, affiliates, respective speakers and moderators, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure to be present here with all of you in this auspicious event of the Batik Week, theme Revitalising the Malaysian Batik Industry. On behalf of Yang Bahagia Datuk Lokman Hakim Ali, Secretary General of MITI, I wish to extend my warm welcome and selamat datang to all the participants joining this event virtually across Malaysia. My congratulations to MIDA, Persatuan Batik Malaysia, Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia, Federation of Malaysian Fashion Textile and Apparels, and Kraftangan Malaysia for your joint effort to organize this auspicious one-week event. This is a great platform to witness the evolution of the batik industry in Malaysia, with its significant share to the nation's economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, in Malaysia, batik is a national heritage art and the pride of the country since the 19th century. The World Asia Pacific Craft Council recognized Malaysia batik as one of the most well-known local crafts globally. The cottage industry was largely run by a small group of Malay entrepreneurs, mainly in the two Malay belts of Kelantan and Terengganu. In addition, the states of Sabah and Sarawak also produced their own batik identification, showcasing intricate indigenous motifs in the designs. The batik industry in Malaysia not only provide income for the entrepreneurs, but also job employment to thousands of locals in both the downstream and upstream activities. Undoubtedly, the batik industry contributes to the Malaysian economy through the manufacturing activity in the textile industry. It is also a popular handicraft product that spurred the development of the tourism industry. Approximately 70% of this industry in Malaysia is derived from SMEs, and micro entrepreneurs is one of the main components in SMEs. Batik players play a vital role in fostering the Malaysia heritage and culture, which elevating economic values within the ecosystem of relative industries. This one-week event aims to revitalize the Malaysian batik through embracing new technology innovation to push forward this national industry. One of the event highlights is to develop a green business model for the cottage industry, leveraging on the local SMEs capabilities. The batik industry must tune its thinking on the concept of environmentally friendly industry by applying green principles. The objective of this environmental management is to increase the ecological performance of manufacturing process in dealing with the environmental issues. I believe that with the application of green industry principle, the batik industry will experience an increased momentum in the national and global front without changing its traditional definition of batik and its method that involve the chanting and block techniques. Ladies and gentlemen, the imposition of lockdowns has speed up our shift to online transaction and dealings. The fact that COVID-19 has jolted us to the reality of how crucial and pervasive digitalization is, the more reason for industries to embrace technology to sustain their business operations. In terms of business strategy remodeling, I urge industry players to be more flexible, innovative, and agile to transform in its dealing with the new norm of operating business to survive in multi-markets. I encourage batik designers to explore new and innovative design when creating more customized and exclusive motifs in line with the current fashion trend to attract wider range of market segment among Malaysians. With this initiative in place, there will be more exposure for batik as a form of art, receiving recognition among the younger generation in the local and international markets, thus boosting the promotion of batik industry in the global arena. As such, I assure you that the government of Malaysia is committed to support businesses to remain competitive and resilient through various facilitation and measures on the road to economic recovery. MITI and MIDA will continue to connect the dots, unlocking new opportunities for businesses to explore and thrive. I anticipate that the participants, including business players, policymakers, and strategy thinkers, will fully benefit and gain from the program lineup over this week. I encourage each and every one of you to engage actively in exchanging ideas, thoughts, and insights on how we can continuously promote the industry and instill a positive and competitive environment among the industry players and stakeholders in Malaysia. I believe this webinar will provide a conducive platform for experience sharing and knowledge gain to revitalize the batik industry. I wish all of you a fruitful session ahead. On that note, with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, it gives me a great pleasure to officiate the Batik Week 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Datuk Bahria. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, MIDA Batik Week 2021 is officially launched. We have an exciting and informative agenda ahead of us for the rest of the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, in Malaysia, so much of our art comes in the form of batik, a cultural heritage weaved into our rich history. It is a proud cultural practice passed down from generation to generation. Malaysia's batik beautiful designs are omnipresent at all special occasions, especially during festive events such as Eid celebrations. Batik motifs are usually common patterns of floral elements, leaves, even vines. As it is usually handmade, they are designed in a way that each piece is never the same and truly unique. Now, just to run you through, ladies and gentlemen, we hope to have your company over the coming 5 days of Batik Week 2021. These virtual events comprise talks and forums on day 1 and day 5, focusing on batik expertise by renowned speakers. From day 2 until day 3, we'll be featuring various batik collections from several talented batik entrepreneurs. Not forgetting, we are also broadcasting live via MIDA's Facebook all day long as well as for the rest of the week. And thus, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, allow me to now introduce day one's inaugural session for Batik Week 2021, which is a talk on, very appropriately, getting to know Batik Malaysia. The speaker is Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Muhammad Najib Ahmad Dawa, Director of Sari Cempaka Art Village. And this conversation will be moderated by Yang Berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Mandana Bark-Shelley. She's a conservation scientist and Principal Fellow with the Grimwaite Center for Cultural Materials Conservation at the Faculty of Arts in the University of Melbourne. I now hand the floor over to Yang Berusaha Professor Dr. Mandana. All yours, Professor.
Very good morning. I would like to thank Yayasan Budi Penyayang Malaysia and Maida inviting me as moderator of this session of Batik Week 2021. It is my great pleasure to have our prominent speaker, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Dato Muhammad Najib Dawa. And before I invite him to start his talk through the title of his title is Getting to Know Batik Malaysia. Though he doesn't need to be introduced, I would like to present a brief introduction on him. Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Muhammad Najib Ahmad Dawa was the former Director General of the National Art Gallery of Malaysia and also Rector of National Art Culture and Heritage Academy Aswara, and also Dean School of Art University of Science Malaysia USM in Pulau Pinang. And Dato Najib Ahmad Dawa is also Chief Judge of the Piala Sri Endon Batik Design Competition, which I had the pleasure to work with him for last more than 16 years. Trained and educated in UK, Dr. Najib believes that the years he spent with the batik maker in Kelantan make him to batik artist that he is today. As an artist, Dr. Najib is passionate about the preservation of culture and heritage. In 2020, Dr. Najib established Sari Cempaka Art Village, a creative hub for artistic art program and community events. It aims to promote art and rural tourism while providing a safe space for young artists to learn and indulge in the arts. Dato Najib, I would like to add that in his free time, his home is a farm at the work on the beautiful nature at the foot of the Titiwang Samanteg range, which he relocated and conserved a country-old traditional wooden house. Dato Najib, I would like to invite you to start your talk entitled Getting to Know Batik Malaysia. Thank you very much. The floor is on you.
Thank you, Manana. Well, I was given the topic, Getting to Know Batik Malaysia. And let me walk through a very brief on what actually Batik Malaysia is. So the content of my talk would be on terminology, notes on Batik, a brief history, roots of present Batik, a definition of Batik within Malaysian context, and the typology. In terms of terminology, the origin of the word Batik is a two-syllable word, actually, Batik. So the origin of the word is actually Javanese, from the roots of Mbatik, working with the dots. In Java, batik making is actually the application of hot wax using janting or stamping. So hand-drawn is actually widely recognized in Java. But the hand-drawn using janting is a painstaking process. So when the Dutch colonized Indonesia, batik is very popular as a gift and a trading commodity to Africa, and the West. So I think with the demand of the high demand, so the introduction of the block print is actually to speed up production due to high demand. So this is where the technique has expanded from just janting to stamping. Within the Malaysian context, there are several notes on batik, like in the Malay Annals, the Sejarah Melayu. That's on page 163, mentioned about Hang Nadim, where he was asked by the Sultan to go to India to commission several works for the Sultan himself. And the problem over there is all about the artist over there, or the artisan couldn't materialize what actually Han Nadim wanted. In the end, Han Nadim handled himself and do it on his own and brought back to Malacca. And the Sultan is very impressed. So with that note, actually, in this Sejarah Melayu or the Malay Annals, Hang Nadim is the first textile designer. On the second note on batik is actually Tun Hasan Temenggung displaying the baju Melayu for the first time in the Balerong Sri of the Istana of Malacca. So here, actually, I'm trying to show that there is already a fashion designer in that period, because the designing of the baju Melayu is actually a change from the tradition into a new clothing, new attire, just to fit into the new surrounding. And here, you can see from the slide, the word Penambang is actually a location in Kelantan and also Lorong Gajah Mati. These two places are actually the origin of batik in Malaysia. In Penambang, it started in 1800s, and Lorong Gajah Mati in the 1900s. This is where it all began in Kelantan, or in the Peninsular Malaysia. I will walk through a very brief history of batik industry in Kelantan. It all started in the 19th century by Haji Ali bin Cik Muda at Kampung Laut, and later moved to Penambang. The journal, or the batik journal produced, known as Batik Pelangi or the Rainbow Batik. And it was later continued by Hajah Cik Teh bin Haji Ali, where the market expanded to Terengganu and also to South Thailand. Next, this is a sample of batik Lok Chan in 1800, where you can see the fabric is actually a silk fabric. And you can see the details of the fabric. And the next slide, you can see this is again on silk, and you can see the effects of the stamp on the fabric. It's quite raw. And next slide, you can see this, the detail of that pengapit kepala kain that is next to the kepala kain. You can see the detail of it. So you can see the effects of the stamp, which is the use of a wooden stamp. Next slide, you will see again, this is also a stamping process using wooden stamp. So that's roughly some samples of pieces of the stamp used during that period. So the birthplace of the present batik is actually at Lorong Gajah Mati, Kota Baru, Kelantan in 1930s. It was started by Haji Cik Su bin Haji Isa and his 6 children. So all of them are involved in the production of batik using the technique wooden block, metal stamp, and later batik kokon. So you can see the development from batik pelangi. They also developed batik pelangi, move on to wooden block and metal stamp, and later batik kokon. Batik kokot is actually a screen. So in 1911, Adi Cetsu started its batik industry at Lorong Gajah Mati, Kota Baru, and produces batik pelangi. This is the version of batik pelangi or the rainbow batik, and later introduced batik block using stamps, also known as batik pukul. The term pukul meaning beating. It's actually not beating, it's stamping. But in Kelantan, they use the word pukul. The production of the batik block uses a kind of a sarang, that's the wooden block made out of wood carved with motif and stamp it onto the fabric. And the makers for the stamp is actually most of them are employed wood carvers who carve for other aspect of the houses, which they are wood carvers, and they will be commissioned to carve on the stamp. So you can see that there is a change of design from architecture and into the stamp. This new technique managed to speed up production. It's all about speeding up the production as compared to the painstaking process of batik pelangi. Next. In 1926, Haji Cetsu introduced a new technique by replacing the wooden stamp and introducing the wax resist technique. This is where Raden Mukhtar is actually a Javanese from Java, joined him in the production line. And Raden Mukhtar introduces the use of stamps made from copper to replace the wooden block. And the effect of this stamp using copper with this new approach is actually a much finer and a better quality and standard of batik design. Later in 1928, so you can see the innovation, a change of using stamping technique, of copper technique, block stamping. In 1928, one of the Haji Cetsu's son, Yusuf, exploring the use of stencil, which he learned from Dr. Smith, and the production started in 1928. But later on, he further developed his production, and in 1933, Haji Yusuf increases his production line into a big-scale production because due to demand. And this is the turning point of Batik in Kelantan, where he started a new family business known as Muhammad Yusuf and Co. Haji Cetsu's family later set up Syarikat Samasa Batik, and this is the Syarikat Samasa survived until today. So at present, people came to know about batik lukis of hand-drawn batik. So you can see what I've mentioned and showed to you just now, the changes of the phase one, the batik in Panambang is actually tie and dye. And then in 1833, so you can see the declining of batik in Kelantan and batik in Terengganu after Kelantan. And the second phase is actually at Lorong Gajah Mati. This is where Haji Cetsu started as an industry. And the phase three, this is the hand-drawn batik. Actually, hand-drawn batik started and developed somewhere in 1970s with the introduction by Wan Nong during his day as a graphic designer at Redang. So you can see in Malaysia, hand-drawn batik came later after the stamping. But in Indonesia, the hand-drawn batik started first. It's a form of batik production normally confined to the Kraton. So you can see the changes in terms of technique and also in technology. So let me take you to the definition of what actually batik is. According to Anne, batik is actually a very delicate and intricate definition in the context of Malaysia. To most Malaysian citizens, batik is actually anything that looks like batik, uses the design and motif, certain motif, and the process of producing the batik is secondary. But in 1972, Custom and Excise Malaysia has defined batik, sebarang kain batik, any cloth or sebarang fabric or any fabric that is printed that looks like batik, and that is categorized as batik by the Custom and Excise Department. And RIDA, that is Rural and Development Authority, defined batik based on process. The cloth is subjected to 100% wax resist or wax writing, after which the piece of cloth is deep dyed with various colors. So you can see the difference between the community acceptance of batik. Anything that can to them that looks like batik, to them it is batik. And even that they came up with the term batik, you know. Another expert on Indian and Indonesian textile, Alfred Bahler, defined batik as a resist dyeing by covering a fabric with paste or liquid material like mud, gum, or wax, which, when it becomes hard, serves as a screen that resists the dye. So the above interpretation actually mentioned the use of wax or medium as a resist during deep dyeing, known as batik, but the term mud and gum creates ambiguity in the term batik. So the next definition, exploring in terms of interpretation on what actually batik, Dittinger came out in terms of aspects of cultural context, where the technique is widely spread in Java. And when you look at the cultural context, the terminology or the word batik is actually derived from Java. So this is also supported by major fact. And at present, the word batik is actually widely accepted. Where in Africa, they also claim batik is just, and even in France, batik is just, and even in Holland, where they did or they do produce batik and export it to West Coast of Africa. Next slide, you can see this is where the Malaysian standard, 2007, MS 692, Malaysian batik. Batik is actually a generic term referring to a process of painting fabric by making use of a physical resist technique, covering areas of fabric with a physical dye resistant substance, mainly wax, to prevent these areas from dye penetration, and finally removing this dye resistant substance to reveal the design. So the main characteristic of batik is the same, similar intensity of color and design on both sides of the fabric. It's actually giving a kind of effect, a reversibility effect. It's identical on both sides of the fabric. So in terms of typology of Malaysian batik, or batik Malaysia, so you can see it started with batik Pelangi, and then the batik Terap, and then the chop of the block, and then the kokot. This is developed by Haji Cik Su bin Haji Ishaq and the family. And batik Tulis actually started and developed from Rida, or actually Mara, under the experts of Wan Nong in the 70s. So the productions of batik in Malaysia, fabrics, is actually widely produced in terms of sarong. This is widely used, and this is widely demanded by the public. So you can see this is the structures of a sarong. And I'm so sorry of the purple color. It's actually out of place. It's actually from a Mac computer to a PC. And so you can see it moved. But never mind. So the two both kind, it's actually those are two areas, a bigger area and a smaller area, and distributions of the sarong. And the next slide. This is the traditional batik. So this is batik trap. This is actually stitch. You can see the effect of the stitches, the thread there. And this is the batik pelangi, batik pelangi. And you can see how the design is being created using that technique. And the next slide, you can see this is the batik trap using the block or the chop. So you can see it's much more refined, and you can see the variety of colors and the detailedness. And okay, I got to rush through. And the next slide, actually, this is again another samples of the batik block or batik print. And this is actually the design that had been extracted from the block. This is for the badan kain, and this is the kaki kain, and some samples of the design. And this is again for the kapala kain. And the next slide, you can see the hand-drawn batik. This is batik looking. So you can see the difference in terms of the effects. This is the usage of the what call the janting. And you can see the varietiness where it's for further wider apparel instead of just the sarong or the yardage, but it moved to a different kind of. So to conclude, technique in Malaysia involved using wooden blocks, stamping use, and then the hand-drawn, and then wax surfaces. So the dye stuff is actually started with natural dyes and then chemical dyes, and then the characteristic. This is the most important thing, the characteristics of what do you call as batik. So it's actually reversibility of image, and then the cracking effect. So reversibility of image, actually the both sides are identical. So that is one of the main characteristics of Malaysian batik. And the next slide, you can see the evolution of Malaysian batik in terms of technique and in terms of technology, and the evolution from cockot and block. And then in the 70s, you can see the experimentation of the artists just by splashing wax onto the fabric and giving a different kind of effect. And this is the Malaysian context in terms of technique and technology. Started with stitch, and then stamp, then janting, and then the screen, and then reactive dye. The use of reactive dyes as a dyeing. In the context of Indonesia, it's actually they begin with the janting or the tulis. This is confined to the kraton and palaces. It's a form of the high art. It's a form of therapy. And then the chop and block, the gift by the Dutch army, the high demand due to production. But according to an expert in terms of batik in Indonesia, the batik chop is actually a fabric with a batik motif, not actually batik. That in terms of recognition by Ibu Rais. So I got to move on to the end, and question of taste. So again, for global appeal, I think we need to change and to revitalize the Malaysian batik. So thank you for giving me the space and allowing me the space. And thank you to Penyayang, thank you to Mida. Back to you, Padana.
Thank you, Dato. It was lovely and very informative. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I wish we had more time so you could go in more details, but it was lovely to have you today. I learned a lot, but well, few questions I would like to ask you, which always it has come to my mind. The Kelantan and Terengganu, as I know, it is the most states very successfully flourished the batik comparing to other states. I was wondering, after the batik has actually come to the picture in the Malaysia, and they, first of all, could you please talk about it a bit, how it has come to Malaysia, and then how come Kelantan and Terengganu was the leader of this batik, art of the batik in Malaysia?
Well, thank you, Manana. Actually, Kelantan and Terengganu is a very unique state. I would say they are the last bastion in terms of the Malay culture, in terms of art and craft. So you can see art and craft in Kelantan and Terengganu is flourishing. One is the patronage. The patronage, in terms of patronage, actually they are, in terms of skill, there are a lot of people in Kelantan which are really involved in art and culture, and they are really immersed into the art. And you can see the numbers of people involved in the industry in terms of art in Kelantan and Terengganu. These two states actually have the bigger number in terms of the production of people involved as a practitioner, as compared to other states. Yeah. And and you can see in 1990, batik had moved to Sabah, the hand-drawn batik, not the actual the version of batik stamping. No, the hand-drawn have moved to Sabah in 1990.
Right. And also, Dato, I was being in Malaysia for 22 years and working this great honor to be in the movement of batik in Malaysia. I would like to have your your idea about how do you define the characteristic of Malay batik comparing to other Southeast Asian batik, for example, Indonesia, Java, or other places. I found it, in fact, not to be very under the stereotype kind of a traditionally, it is more free, the spirit is different. I would love to have your idea. How do you characterize the Malay batik comparing to other parts of the Southeast Asian countries?
Well, in Malaysia, it's actually, we are not as like Indonesia, where they are deeply rooted with that tradition of batik making. Malaysia is actually, you can see, it started with batik Pelangi, and then with the migration of labor and technology from Java to Kelantan. So this is where that version of batik making using the stamp, metal stamp, has moved to Kelantan and then later on to Terengganu. But Malaysians is actually, they are actually very, very open, and they will accept anything that related to what they call and perceive as batik. To them, batik, actually the design, the twists and curls, and you can see this is where Sarah Ane mentioned just now that anything that's similar or look-alike batik to Malaysian, they will take it as batik because they don't have that deep knowledge in terms of the process. And you can see later on came with the introduction of hand-drawn batik, and again they accept it. Malaysians are, you can see they accept to change, and hand-drawn batik again they accept because of the use of the wax. But later on, now, I think most Malaysian can accept the word batik or the term batik or the fabric that is considered as batik, as long as the characteristic to them, the fabric is reversible and the cracking effect. To the Indonesian expert, batik Malaysia is not batik. They don't categorize that as batik because you can see the effects of cracking in terms of during the process.
Exactly. Yeah.
To the Indonesian expert, if there is a cracking of wax, you are not skilled. So you are not
Exactly.
an
Yeah. True.
expert. So to them, that's not batik. So this is one of the characteristics of Malaysian batik.
Exactly.
The cracking. Yeah. I hope
And I
that
enjoyed. Yeah, that's all. There is a one in your catalog and catalog on the. I think there was in National Art Gallery. You had the exhibition. There was a catalog. I read your, in fact, one of your statements regarding one of the innovative batik, which was the showing that the from the birth of the child to the mature growth adult, just in the way the design of the simple design of the flower and the arrangement in all these three parts has been symbolized and metaphoric into that piece of batik which you were discussing. I was really enjoyed that. I thought if you have you can elaborate a bit on that. The sample which you gave, that you can see how, in fact, innovative and how the artists make a story from the motif into the sarong, giving a message of artistic kind of innovative on that. So I really love that piece which you mentioned. Can you elaborate on that? How this actually in Malaysia, right?
Well, in the context of Malaysia, people has forgot about the use of batik. So they will actually they don't really remember when is the last time for them to use batik. So a statement made by me in that catalog of N block
Yes.
at National Gallery. Actually, batik. They actually when you as a child or when they've been given birth to a child, that child will be put into that onto this cradle using kain batik. So and the last time they're going to use that batik is actually before the burial. So that's the only time which they didn't realize that they've been covered with a batik. So during that period, during childbirth and until to the graveyard, they forgot about batik. This is where the intention of Yayasan Budi Penyayang by introducing Piala Sri Endo actually bringing to life about batik, to bring people to look at batik differently. You see, it is us. You see, it is our culture, and you can see there's a gap there where people forgot about the use of batik. But so you can see for wider apparel, so batik have evolved from just the sarong. During that period in the early 60s, the men even wear sarong because sarong is actually a multi-purpose fabric. You can use it as a piece of cloth that can put all your stuff and you put it onto your shoulder and carry it.
Dato, before I go to my next question, I would like to read the participants if they have any question to ask. Actually, Howard Lowe asked if possible to set up a digital printing and designer center for automation production batik fabric. What do you think? This is
automation.
Yes. If possible, to set up the digital printing and designer center for automation production batik fabric.
Well, again, you can set up. I've shown and displayed to you, to all of you just now that there's a change, there's an evolution in terms of process. But again, they have stopped using the tie and dye, but now tie and dye came back. But again, the use of wax has never been left behind. So it is always there. And in terms of percentage of users of wax as a resist, depends. But
Yes.
the use of automation, yes, I think they can explore. But using wax just to create, like I said, the characteristic of Malaysian batik, the reversibility, and again, and then the cracking effect. If they can create that cracking effect, well, those are the characteristics of Malaysian batik.
Yeah. Okay, it isn't one. He also adds that I think he's very interested in this digital kind of a technique. IT is a wonderful program for coordination textile industry between Taiwan and Malaysia in 2021 Batik Week, and with the Taiwan Textile Research Institute and Taiwan Technical Textile Association. That would be nice if this kind of a collaboration can be done.
I think this actually, this webinar is actually an introduction
Exactly,
to the people and the industry itself to relook and rethink about the batik. Is it the process of batik?
Yes, Dato. And I think we have another 5 or 10 minutes. No, the question to chat. Okay, because we don't have much time, Dato. I think later we are going to answer the other question, but I would like to ask you 1 or 2 more questions very quickly, because this is my interest. I am the conservation scientist myself, and very interested on what is the oldest batik which is preserved. Of course, we know that Malaysia, with the humid condition and textile to be fragile and dyes are fading under the light and all these. What is actually the oldest which is preserved, either in museum or private collection? How far back it is actually we have any piece of batik?
Well, I think late 1800, the kind of the use of stitches, deep dyeing, batik pelangi. Those fabrics are still around. It's actually in the museum. And in fact, what I've displayed just now and what I've shown in terms of image of batik fabric are actually part of my own personal collection. But I just wanted to add. So with this information and with this knowledge and information in terms of design, we can revitalize it, reintroduce it, by bringing it back to life. So looking at the future technology, IR 4.0, well, if you have to stay in the apartment or condominium, you can just go down there and print your own. I'm hoping that by then, by 2050, you can just produce your own fabric that you are going to wear next week. So thanks again.
And the last question, because we don't have much time, and this is I think one of the participants also asked this question, and myself, I love to know, what are the organic extract for dyes, like from plants, from skin, or from seeds in Malaysia? Because in dyes on textile, we use a lot of organic dyes, but what particular is local in Malaysia as a dye product?
Well, in Malaysia, there's a lot of exploration in terms of natural dyes. And one of the oldest, like turmeric, and again, what we call that plant, I forgot the name of the plant. Indigo, actually, indigo. The expert is here, like Edric Ong. He went even to Japan to explore on indigo. But in Malaysia, it's actually the Kraft Tangan Malaysia have explored using several plants, even the guava leaves. Kraft Tangan have come up and process it in terms of using it as a natural dye. So you can see my prediction about the future in terms of sustainable development people are going towards natural dyes because we are going to preserve the environment.
And I think this movement has started, right? The movement of using natural.
Yeah, it started, and hopefully they will carry on, provided that the government must provide a center where people are accessible in terms of technology, in terms of technique, and so that it is shared by all batik makers. Thank you.
Dato, I wish we had more time, but our time is up. So thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, and it was lovely to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon again. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Manana, for moderating it. Thank you, Mida. Thank you, Dato Leila at Yayasan Penyayang, for giving me the space. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I will give the floor to the next session now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yang Berusaha and Yang Berbahagia. What an excellent way to set the stage on all things batik, a literal batik 101. We're highly and deeply appreciative of your expertise and insights. Before we proceed, I'm also delighted to share with our dear viewers that we have attractive batik offerings for purchase throughout Batik Week 2021. All our featured from Batik are providing a generous 10% off throughout Batik Week 2021. This will be all the way from today, Monday, till Friday. Bujan Batik is going one further with 15% off during Batik Week. Yes, all 5 days. So please remember the promo code Batik Week. Ladies and gentlemen, moving along now into the panel discussions we have lined up for today. I now have the pleasure of introducing our moderator of Forum 1 of MIDA Batik Week 2021. Forum 1 is entitled Batik and Science, Going Back to Nature. Our moderator is none other than Yang Berbahagia, Professor Emerita, Dato Sri Dr. Mazlan Osman, astrophysicist and fellow with the Academy Science of Malaysia. Yang Berbahagia, I hand over the virtual floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank MIDA for inviting me to moderate a session at this Batik Week celebration. Special greetings to Datuk Lila of Budi Penyayang, with whom I work with closely on Batik matters. I have been a great admirer of Batik as an art form. So when I was in charge of the National Planetarium, I ran a competition on batik and space. The planetarium, as a result of that call for nominations, received about more than 100 batik artworks with space as the source of inspiration. So that was one of my forays. But I think maybe it's not well known that in 2007, I had arranged for the Malaysian Angkasawan to wear a batik shirt when he was at the International Space Station. This was an important part of the cultural aspect of the Angkasawan program, and we were determined to expose Malaysian culture to the world. And space is not just about science and technology, it's also about art and culture. So not only did he wear batik shirt, he ate Malaysian food, listened to Malaysian songs, read the Quran, and even conducted his prayers in space, which of course was a part of the fatwa on how to do ibadah in space, which is now a soft law of the world. Anyway, we fashioned a shirt from one of the batik art entries that I told you about for this Angkasawan. So it was a very emotional moment for me when I saw that batik shirt in the International Space Station. So I must say that Datuk Lila helped me exhibit this shirt, which had gone to space at various events. Actually, I don't know where that shirt is today, but we have a batik shirt that had gone to space. Anyway, this morning, at this session, we are looking at batik from the point of view of batik and science from the perspective of going back to nature. We're going to be looking at issues, various issues, including environmental issues, as well as natural materials for the batik industry. I heard that question on natural materials. So we have 4 speakers from various backgrounds to weigh in on this matter. I'd like to remind panelists that we have 10 minutes each. We have lost 10 minutes because I was hoping we'd have 15 minutes question and answer from the participants, because I do have to leave at 11:30 to go into another international meeting. This is sort of a crazy day for me. Anyway, to get going, I'd like to invite our first speaker. Our first speaker is let's see, where's my list? Is Puan Nur Hazni binti Matsari, who is the Deputy DG of the Department of Environment, Malaysia. So she's looking at the DOE's role, the Department of Environment's role in promoting green industry initiatives in Malaysia, with a special focus on the batik industry. Over to you, Nur Hazni.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan selamat pagi. Thank you to Yang Berbahagia Prof. Emeritus Datuk Sri Dr. Mazlan Osman. I'm very honored to be invited today, and I'm so inspired with your achievement and very glad to be together for this session. And again, to other panelists, yang berusaha Prof. Dr. Nick Mariam binti Nick Sulaiman, Mr. Edric Ong, and together with Puan Isna Zunita binti Ismail, and we are very happy to share a bit, and the webinar participants to share a bit on this topic or session related to batik and science going back to nature, where we would like to give some revisiting on the DOE's role in promoting green industry initiatives in Malaysia. So this is outline of my presentation. And of course, in striving with the task of balancing economic development and environmental management in the country, the Malaysian government has introduced various legal and non-legal strategies. So effort has been made by the government through various ministries and agencies to step up the environmental management in the country. So for the Department's Environment, I think I would like to share a bit the function of the Department's Environment Malaysia. DOE is to administer and enforce the Environmental Quality Act 1974, where this act was enacted to prevent, abate, control and enhancement of the environment. And under the Environmental Quality Act 1974, there are at least 38 subsidiary regulations has been introduced to deal with the specific issues ranging from agro-based and manufacturing industries, including the batik industries. And of course, the most important thing that we always listen now is on the environmental impact assessment. So with regards to the government policy on environment, currently Malaysia has carried out programs and activities related to the management, protection and conservation of the environment. There are many policy and regulatory instruments play an important role in controlling environmental pollutions and the problems. And we shift through the evolution, there are a shifting from end-of-life treatment technologies to integrated preventive strategies such as cleaner technologies and also waste minimization. And for the government of Malaysia, we do have one specific policy related to the environment, where national policy on environment, where there are at least 8 principles with 7 green strategies has been laid for the continuous economic, social and cultural progress and enhancement of the quality of life through the environmental sound and sustainable development. And again, for the Departments of Environment Malaysia, the Environmental Quality Act 1974 was enacted to prevent, abate, control pollution, and of course, for the enhancement of the quality of environment. So when having said on the, what are the DOE commitments in green industries initiatives? So there are many programs and activities has been promoted to ensure industries to comply with the, I think particularly the emission and discharge standards by enforcing our own law, the EQA and its regulation. And of course, together with that, we also promote to encourage the industries to implement green industries initiatives through the cleaner production concept. So how do we know? How do we guide the industry in Malaysia, including the textile or the batik industry in Malaysia? I think it's need to understand, and it starts at the planning stage. From these slides, we can see that it's depicted the project planning and development stages. There are at least 4 main stages that needs to be understood. The first one is the pre-planning, where the site identification for the premises is essential to understand. And the second part is the stage is for the planning, where we more or less understand all the project partner has to understand their site confirmation and to understand and to ensure that it's confirmed and conform to the zoning and compatibility of the siting of the industry. And at this particular stage, I think they also to understand whether they have to undertake EIA or non-EIA. So for EIA is only meant for the prescribed activity, whereas for non-prescribed activities, they are only encouraged to undertake self-assessment of their own screening. When it comes to the batik industry, I think the most important thing is during the design and implementation, where this is the place or the way this is a stage where they have to reevaluate their pollution control requirements if needed, and of course through the elements of self-regulation, perhaps to incorporate EMT elements in their detailed design, project scheduling and pooling, and hopefully the whole implementations of the batik industry, the installations of pollution control system and their commissioning is in place, and their operation will be safe and sound by virtue of the inspections and enforcement of the agency. Okay, these slides is to make everyone to understand about the requirements need to address to conform to the guidelines for siting and zoning of industry and residential areas 2012. And of course, there are also one specific guidelines published by DOE, namely the environmental essentials for siting of industries in Malaysia. So these guidelines, both guidelines addressing the issues of buffer and the distance to reduce and minimize the impact to the surrounding. So when you talk about the pollution control procedures in Malaysia, having said, regardless of what industries they are, they have to follow this flowchart. But by virtue of batik industry, they are categorized as non-prescribed activities, meaning that no such EIA report is needed, and only ensuring that the proper installations of pollution control system is there and getting some license for their project operations. So again, we are talking about the batik industries and their compliances. Of course, all businesses use resources, right, to produce products and deliver services. And with regards to the batik industries, we can see that the flow chart from cutting, drawing up to the packaging needs sound environmental management for all those substances. We can foresee that from the process, there are many materials used, for instance, like dye, wax, and chemicals, that needs a very good way in managing that. So issues in batik industries. So they have been persisting environmental predicaments related to the batik industries with regards to air, water, and schedule waste of our, and then more or less to the compliances to the EQE. So several issues has been realized during our enforcement program and inspection. So we can foresee that there are only water source. I think since the batik is a cottage industry, there's a less incentive to reduce water use. There are also an issue of emission from burning of woods. There are also issues related to the discharge from the refill tanks, and then the handling and the management of the chemicals, for instance, like sodium silicate, that spill over from the drums and drip from the draining fabric that can pollute the drain water. And there are also lots of spillover from the drums during the drying process. So those are the issues that need to be enhanced by the batik operators or batik industries, which I think at present, DOE is facilitating them for their compliances. So what are the compliances regulations that need to adhere to? So of course, there are 35 regulations, but for the case of batik, I think we are just focusing on the industrial effluent, their clean air regulations related to the emissions, and of course, the spent waste or spent chemicals, which related to their to the regulations of schedule waste. So the enforcement program of DOE, again, I think comprising the command and control approach with very much related to the environmental compliances, right, to the EQA. So the main missions of the enforcement of our program of DOE enforcement inspection carry out on the industrial sources across the country is to ensure good compliances. And therefore, a better mechanism for implementation of more effective and systematic enforcement program involve various players. DOE alone is not only DOE, but is involved the chemistry department, Malaysia, the AGC, International Chambers, and the court decision. This is
Dr. Nohasni, I'm going to give you 1 more minute, please.
Yes, okay. So this is the element, the principles about command and control. And of course, we the other strategic environmental management is through guided self-regulation that support the sustainable development, which all industries together with batik industries is encourages to implement this. And again, through the cleaner production approach in batik industry, we can see that cleaner production is the continuous application of an integrated preventive environmental strategy towards their processes, products, and services in order to increase all overall efficiency and reduce damage and risk for humans and environment. Then again, I think previously, there are many industries that ignore the pollution, but we are promoting the cleaner production, and we hope that the batik industries will be with us. So the cleaner productions, those are the information or the strategic tool of business policy, which integrates the environment in the global management. And of course, there are many examples of options of CP that can be used. For instance, like improve the housekeeping, use their field then woods to reduce the emission and so on. And the other cleaner production options generation, we can see that DOE has initiated and established a CP guidelines, especially on batik industries. And in 2011, DOE has cooperated with many batik industry on their demonstration projects. And from the study, we had published Garis Panduan Pelaksanaan Amalan Industri Hijau bagi Industri Batik. So there are 160 CP options has been outlined in the Garis Panduan. So again, this is
Reminder, please, Dr. Nohasni.
This is the outcome of the study, so we could share with these slides. And again, this is also the outcome where we can see the reductions of carbon footprint. So in that, we conclude that the benefits of cleaner production can include less waste, recovery of valuable byproducts, improve environmental performance, increase productivity, better efficiency, reduce energy consumption, and an overall reduction in cost. With that, thank you very much, and the department visions to ensure that environmental conservation for the well-being of the people and alam sekitar tanggungjawab bersama. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nurhazni. Our next speaker is a distinguished scientist, Professor Nik Mariam Sulaiman. She is honorary professor at the University of Malaya and is a fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. She will discuss with us on understanding the nature of science as it applies to batik. This is going to be interesting. Please, Prof. Mariam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, and a very good October morning to each and everyone. Thank you very much to Prof. Dr. Mazlan for the kind introduction. I am delighted to be part of this Batik Week 2021 event. I have always been a batik enthusiast, wearing it, and about 10 years ago started doing some scientific research on batik itself. The title of my sharing session is Sustainable Batik Through Scientific Knowledge, where in this case, sustainable batik production refers to a production process that conserves natural resources and energy, is economically viable, non-polluting to the environment, and provides safe working environment for workers as well as consumers. Next slide, please. In going to the next slide, I must say that my happy experience of working with batiks for more than a decade show the same aspirations from the batik. It's just that now we would like to escalate the batik industry to greater heights, to apply more exacting scientific knowledge to achieve these goals in making the batik more sustainable. So in this very introductory slide, please see the last end. Science as a societal enterprise is no longer, science with, scientists working on it. We have an obligation to use science as a complexity of knowledge that can be used by people, organizations, facilities, and so on to the study of the activities of what we do as human beings on the planet. Next slide, please. This old and new paradigm of science and technology is we would like to acculturate the belief among all in society in going from the old paradigm of, scientists being cooped up somewhere to a new science where the felt problems, the issues, and so on are being looked at by the whole society. Next slide, please. So moving forward, I would like to put in perspective the general concept of intervention that can be done to improve any process. In the middle, we have the process. On the left-hand side, we have the inputs, and on the right-hand side would be the products. In terms of the input, of course, we have the raw materials, be it in any form of, the materials that is used to make the product. We also need the auxiliary materials, the utilities, electricity, water, and the chemicals needed for the utilities. And on the products itself, this is where the products can, in any process, normally it is not only the products that is being produced, because we can also have byproducts that can give some added value. Unfortunately, in any process that takes place, we normally have residual. I don't like to use the word waste because these residuals or waste that we would like to see will have an impact on the environment. It can have a cost issue. It can also be hazardous in health, as pointed out by Hasbi just now. I left the people factor last because I think this is where the whole process makes it work. So the people are the guiding or the principal dominant factor that will make the products that is to be used by the consumer. And in each of this improvement that we can try to entertain, there are many active actions that we need to do. And for example, the raw materials need to be optimized. The utilities need to be optimized. The electricity need to be optimized. And the The utilities need to be minimized. The products and byproducts should have functionality, cost effectiveness, binded by consumer pressure as well as globalization. The waste, we need to make it less hazardous, and I think just now the DG of DOE has spelled out in great details on what is being done about that. The process itself is something that can be done as well. And people empowerment is very important, whether we're talking about technical knowledge, training on the jobs, reskilling, and the whole supply chain is important in the making the process more sustainable. Next slide, please. So how do we apply to this concept to batik making? In simple terms, if we translate the action plan just now from the general concept to the batik industry, we have here the raw materials that we can do something about. What do we do about the premises, utilities in terms of water and energy consumption? Workplace environment is very important because we want to make our workers safe and happy in the environment. The product itself has been, this is what MIDA is trying to do in a sense, making sure that we take care of the trending in the fashion industry. It should be affordable so that it is inclusively can be used by everybody in the society. There should be fair trade in terms of the business model. The product itself should be eco-friendly, and I'm glad that we have 2 more speakers after this to talk about the eco-friendly nature, and it should be of high quality. In this sense, where can we leverage the low-hanging fruits? So in a sense, we can do this by identifying the hotspots. And these are potential locations in the production area, which has the potential to result in losses in the batik factory. Because when they see this as being in the business sector, you want to minimize your losses at any cost. And this can be a motivating factor for people to take up, new ideas and so on. And this losses is not only in terms of economic, it has now been extended to the environment and also the consumer. Can we have this next slide, please? So the next 3 series of slides, I have tried to put in more details in the perspective of the batik process. It covers the same themes of the pain points that you can see in the batik production process, the science itself, and the return of value, because I'm trying to see the whole batik production in a more circular manner, taking the circular economy into perspective, and it should actually be taking care of the whole supply chain. So the thing about the pain points in the raw materials has already been done. The return of value as we go along would be, what is it going to give an impact to the people, your pocket, profit, and also the planet. So in the end, we would try to get a product that is green in nature. It has not only market appeal, it has upskilling talent. And in going forward to the SDG that we have now, we're already talking about greenhouse gases. So it's important to have some idea or ways to calculate the carbon footprint and also to reduce the water footprint. The science part, and I'm glad I have friends in the panels, I hope they will go further in terms of the natural dyes. But one thing that has not been mentioned, and I think Prof. Najib is also, Dr. Najib is also here. What about thinking, replacing the fossil fuel-based wax with natural waxes? I think some has used beeswax, but I think maybe it is time to do a more in-depth study in terms of using the palm oil stearin, the solid part, as part of as a replacement for the fossil fuel-based wax. And another thing that comes in mind is about the fixing agent in terms of using silicates, or can we try to do something else? So the next slide, please. That would go, next slide. This will go to the process itself. Again, with the return of value is about, being impactful and inclusive and sustainable to people, profit, and planet. And I think just now, Dr. Nasli has talked a great deal on the cleaner production to minimize raw materials and water usage. And I think one of the experiences that we have with, because I was also involved in the cleaner production for DOE some time ago, the fixing process itself is also can be automated, because if you see under small medium scale industries, they just hang over the bar. That can be done more effectively by using more semi-automated process of using machine to get rid of the glass water or the silicate. The raw materials, the water usage is also very important. I think generally in literature, for every meter cube of meter squared of batik material, you would probably use 25 to 50 liters of water. And that goes to waste, and there are ways and appropriate means of treating the wastewater. The issue or the pain point actually is what is appropriate to small, medium industries. It's not true to say there are no technology to treat textile wastewater. There are quite a lot. But what is appropriate at the small, medium enterprises scale? Next slide, please.
Prof. Mariam, just to remind you, you've used your 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, the science part is this, also the same thing, and I think I cannot emphasize more that we have to keep our workers happy. They have to have a proper workplace environment, and with reskilling in terms of IoT awareness and skill. Next slide should be the last one. So I think just now it was also mentioned about the Clean Batik initiative that we shared with the EU-Asia link for Nusantara, both Malaysia and Indonesia. And I was involved in this. The phase was about cleaner production. Again, marketing component was part of an issue so that we can have it on a more business-friendly environment, and policy dialogue to get the communication running. So moving forward, we need to have an ecosystem approach which encompasses the whole life cycle. The last slide, the slide before that, just to wrap up, yeah, in the material domain, in the process domain, product domain, people domain, and market domain, which means that we need to look at the whole life cycle to make it more sustainable. Thank you, Prof. Maslan.
Thank you, Prof. Mariam. That was quite an expose of what science can do for the batik industry. I'm so pleased with that. Our next speaker is Edric Ong, who is a multi-awarded Malaysian designer of natural dye textiles, fashion, and crafts. He is currently the president of the ASEAN Handicraft Promotion and Development Association. He will talk about natural dyes in batik. Please, Edric, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dato' Sri. And I will not waste too much time in a lot of introductions, but to say thank you to Miti, Maida, Penyayang, Satuan Batik Malaysia, and all my friends who have invited me to this session. My contribution is on natural dyes in batik. And as you will see, a lot of the information was gathered through a project that I did with Yayasan Budi Penyayang several years ago on researching on the use of natural dyes in batik. This picture is, as you can see, is a Sarawak motif done in batik, fully waxed. And as Prof. Najib would say, you can see the crackles. So that's genuine batik. Next. Next slide. One of the simplest and most useful material to use for batik is actually indigo, because batik making involves dyeing and waxing. And waxing means that you must be able to dye at a certain temperature that your wax that controls the patterns is not lost when you are dyeing. And therefore, indigo is more suitable because it is cold dyeing. There are two types of indigo in Malaysia. One is indigo ferra tinctoria, and the other Mazdenia tinctoria, which is found in East Malaysia. The photo on the top is indigo tinctoria, and on the bottom left is Mazdenia tinctoria. And the photo of the finished product is dyed with indigo tinctoria batik. Next, please. Natural indigo batiks. We know that there are different types of batiks throughout the Asian region. There is Strobilanthes cusia, which is found a lot in Indonesia and in Taiwan. In Japan, China, and Korea, there is Prosycaria tinctoria. In Europe, they use a different word, W-O-A-D. There is in Americas Indigofera subfructicosa. But I would like to say that maybe we in Malaysia, we have to start a new initiative in really cultivating our suitable indigo for our own natural indigo batiks. The photo on the left is actually using mud resist to create the batik. And the one on the bottom right is actually using our Malaysian style of using janting and then fully dipping dye in natural indigo. Next, please. This is part of the photos that we have taken during our experimentation on natural dyes with Yayasan Budi Penyayang, whereby, as you know, that our Malaysian technique of applying dye direct onto the stretched out fabric. And so here we are experimenting on direct application of indigo dye on the stretched batik cloth, which is silk in this case. Next. Our famous Michael Lim, our famous batik fine artist in Sarawak, who is a living legend. Here he is directly applying the dye stuff onto the cloth with the outlines of the motifs in wax. So again, this is our Malaysian technique of producing batik. So all this is done with different types of natural dye during our workshop experimentation. Next. There are various other dye stuff which is easily available, which could be produced on a factory or packaged manner and make more accessible to other batik users. One of the most beautiful colors we get is from mangrove tree bark, which is sustainable because you only strip the bark of the mangrove roots without killing the plant, and then you use it in to dye. Although it is a hot dyeing, but at a certain temperature, you can still use for batik. On the top right is ketapang leaves. This is the most useful. And I want to repeat here what our late Pak La, or the Prime Minister Tun Abdullah, has given me this favorite phrase to use, which is from waste to wealth. Because this tree sheds its dark leaves, its dried leaves onto the floors of the roads when they are planted by the roadside. We gather the leaves. This is one of the best source for dyeing for batik because it can be dyed both cold and hot. The third photograph is of sapan wood, which gives you a very nice pink to purplish color dye. Next, please. From flowers and annatto seeds, we also obtain colors for natural dyeing, but we have to be very careful because many people say that, yes, you can get dye stuff from all kinds of flowers and all kinds of substance. And many of these are used for food coloring, but they are not so good for fabric coloring because they are not what they call dye fast. They would run and they would fade in no time. Next, please. Next slide. Ketapang leaves and coconut skins. This is another waste to wealth kind of dye, whereby the coconut skins that you shave off when you are going to have your coconut drink, or from the coconut plantations to get your copra. These are very beautiful brown dyes which you can use. Next, please. Another good dye stuff is the skins of fruits like rambutan, buah and mangosteen peels. I have experimented a lot with using rambutan. It is not the young rambutan, the red color skins that you use, but you have to let them dry to brown, and they are very good for dyeing all kinds of fabric, even non-natural fiber fabrics. Thank you very much. Next. So here are some examples of the natural dye batiks that I have done personally on different types of textures and fabrics. This is very finely woven, hand woven silk. We call it filature silk. And when it's against the skin, it looks like tattoo print. And the bottom one is crepe silk, block printed with natural dyes. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide, yes. Sorry, we seem to have a problem with the slides. The next slide, please.
Edric, it seems that this is your last slide. This is your second last slide, and that slide that you showed after this would in this, you know,
I
for
thought
the
that there was
second
another
your
last slide anyway.
slide.
Okay, I just want to now round it up and say that there is a lot that we can learn. And as a previous speaker was talking about circular economy and how we can use natural dye, not only as extracted from our environment, but the issue of using waste material to create dyes. One of my hopes and ambitions is hopefully that especially in East Malaysia, the wood waste from our timber industries, the logging industries, they strip off the barks, and all these barks can be very good dye stuff for use in our batik industry. And also the other point that maybe with the Ministry of Agriculture and other supporting ministries and agencies in Malaysia, we can get our batik producers to plant their own dye stuff in their back gardens. We know that many of them are small SMEs, and particularly in Sarawak, where you have the land, but you must have the ability to organize yourself to cultivate and to harvest and to package natural dye stuff, which probably can be then generated and exported to other parts of Malaysia where the batik users are, and this would be a good source of income for our local people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edric. I think a lot of us here know about the disaster of having the mangosteen stain on our best shirt. So I'm glad you've included that in your mix of batik dyes. Thank you for being exactly on time. In fact, you have given me 5 seconds to introduce the last speaker. And our last, but certainly not least, is Puan Isna Zunita Ismail. She has a master's in actually environmental biotechnology. So I think she's going to provide some solutions here. But of course, she's from the general manager of the Environmental Technology Research Center of SIRI. And she will talk about the sustainability in the batik industry. Please, Isna Zunita. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Dr. Sri, Dr. Mazlan, distinguished session panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I think we are still morning. Good morning to everyone. So I would like also to thank the panelists for actually providing the kickstart on the discussion. In particular, I think Prof. Nick mentioned about the return of value to the 3 Ps, the planet, the people, and the profit. I think Dr. Hasni also mentioned on the cleaner productions, while Mr. Edric mentions on the use of natural dyes. So while having all this, I'm sure that the current batik will be more sustainable, and therefore they could actually promote better in terms by having the eco-labeling or the green label. Next, please. And next again. Okay, I think we just cut off this one. So today what I'm going to say or mention here very much in the context of the eco-labeling. Yeah? As I said, once you have done all that, probably what you can do now is to have an eco-label. But what eco-label is the mark that is placed on the packaging or also in your catalogs. In order for the consumer to really easily identify the product or the services that is proven to be environmentally preferable within these specific categories. So there are numerous lists of eco-labels currently available globally. I mean, to understand there are about 450 eco-labels, and those that relates to textile will be something like the Better Cotton Initiative or GUT, GUT, or Global Organic Textile Standard, or GOT. So next, please. What I would like to introduce now is actually there are numerous standards that can be utilized. And the general idea is for the eco certified businesses or the batik industry, in order for you to win the consumer, you need to show the labels that showing the positive environmental values within the batik product or the services that you are providing. And for this to happen, these businesses would have to ensure that their products meet certain standards, which is to qualify them to use the label within their industry, in this sense, the batik industry. So what I'm showing here is that the preference is for the ISO type 1 or type 3 labeling, of which this is mostly managed and issued by the third party organization, either by the government's bodies or the credible non-profit organization. So an eco-label is actually looks into a multi-attribute, meaning they focus on the entire life cycle, whether it's the manufacturer right down to the disposal of the product or the services. And it will also address many environmental issues, either the energy use, the chemical that use, the dye that we are talking about in the batik industry, and to some extent, probably if there is a need for us to recycle, whether it's in open loop or in the closed loop. Next, please. Talking about the type 1 eco-labeling, there are opportunity within the SIRIM eco-labeling scheme, whereby it is a third-party assessment that is being assessed on, for instance, in this case, there is a document ECO 034 that talks about apparel and textile product. I will believe the batik product itself, the batik textile can be part of this within the scope of the document itself. As you can see, this type of scheme actually brings about the promotion from the business to the consumer, where the main point is that it has to have the prerequisite criteria will be on the safety and the quality of the product against the regulations. And later on, the assessment being done by the auditor is to look on the product environmental criteria in terms of its functions and also the production process. So these are this is one of the documents that relates back to the, if you were to certify the batik product within the context of apparel and textile products. I mean, to understand some of the things that have been discussed within the eco apparel is looking into the heavy metal content, the dyes that is being used, at least it's not allergenic, it's not carcinogenic or mutagenic. So next, please. If you can see as I said, it's a third party assessment being done by SIRIM QAS against the type 1 eco-labeling, which is actually using the ISO 14024 document for environmental labels and declaration. So this scheme is actually part of the global eco-labeling network, which is the world's most rigorous environmental labels for products and services. Next, please. just now we are talking about at the local level. I would like you to bring to the the New Horizon example. If you were to promote the batik to the at least at the EU countries, one thing that you need to look into that there is a new move in the EU sustainable product policy, of which it provides the is actually a roadmap from the EU economy to actually turn climate and environmental challenges into opportunities. Yeah? So what it has to be is that there is a need to have an efficient use of resources moving forward to clean circular economy in order to restore the biodiversity and cut the pollutions. So 2021 onwards, we are focusing on resource intensive sector where the potential for security is high. Next, please. So what happens now is that there is a move to actually include textile in the context of having a new eco-design and a sustainable product rules. And unlike previously, they were only focusing on electronics and ICT equipment, but now there is a need to have a minimum sustainability information with regards to textile. So the whole effort was to look into the energy efficient, achieving longer product lifetime, increasing circularity of the material that is being used. But most important is to phase out any hazardous substance that is being used within the this life cycle of the material. Yeah. Next, please. So what would I like to highlight here is that having the new what you call that, the new regulations at the EU level, if you were to promote your product globally, there is a need for you to have that there will be a rules to provide more circular product. There'll be new rules that being set not only on the eco-labeling just now, but eco-design, mandatory sustainability labeling, for you to disclose information within the along the value chain, and is in the form of the digital product passport. So these rules, minimum sustainability, is actually to enhance on the public procurement. So for instance, if Malaysia is going for, there is a need for government to actually really look into promoting the use of batik atau the wearing of batik on every Thursday. So this is something that we also need to look into, the kind of mandatory minimum sustainability requirement to enhance this. And also we are talking about to facilitate the recycled content, the remanufacturing and things like that. So this is I think this is my last slide. I think I went very quickly on this because basically we are running out of time. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Isna Zunita, for giving us 1 minute of your time. Very, very generous of you. Okay, now I know we are out of time. We are 11:33. I really must go, but I think to be fair to the speakers who have made such an effort to be here to present some of their insights on this matter, I want to give each speaker 2 minutes each to answer a question. I'd like to go immediately to Isna Zunita because we remember her presentation best. You talked a lot about eco-labeling and how the industry can choose whatever eco-label might be appropriate to them. But you also talk about the European Union eco-product, and we want the rules. So if you want to export to the EU, you need to comply with this EU product rules. Now, how well is Malaysia actually now, the Malaysian batik industry, in complying with these rules?
Okay, when you talk about the EU, if we're talking about at the global stage, this discussion is actually in its very infancy stage. Yeah? I mean, to understand they are still deliberating on the rules, which I think they are going to publish, I think, by end of this year. So what I'm saying is that if the batik industry is really moving towards global green market. This is something that you need to look into. Yeah, it's very fresh. There is a lot of arguments at the global stage, but I'm sure it is coming forward with the Green Deal, with the action plan, and with the circular economy.
Yes, those rules will come. So how will DOE, Dr. Nurhaliza, support the batik industry in complying with those rules?
Yes, Prof. I think being regulators, I think there are many regulated community that should be in comply to DOE, and Batik is one of them. But under our RMK 12 and the previous RMK, DOE has implemented and planned many projects that support this Batik industry towards especially the green industry practices among small and medium enterprises towards green growth. So for the case of batik industry, we always support in facilitating them in understanding the enforcement and provisions of the law. And of course, we are in promoting to inculcate the guided self-regulation and create competitive and environmental friendly SMEs. And in fact, by having this, we try to increase the SME environmental compliances, and of course we are facilitating them through many seminars, and open lots of clinics with them. So hopefully from there the commitments from batik industry is there. Thank you.
Yes, and of course, in doing all those, in complying with the environmental rules, it also means we're going back to nature as well. It's implied in there. So, Prof. Nick Mariam, in terms of the R&D priorities, where do you see this going back to nature, and of course, even complying with those rules fall in? What sort of research should we be doing so that we can do both of those, going back to nature and also complying with rules? You are muted, Prof. Nick.
Sorry, thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Manslan. Great question. There's never ending research that needs to be done, but the low-hanging fruits in terms of going back to science would be the one that Mr. Edric on is using, natural resources, natural wax. But I think that should promote an industry, because I think making natural dyes is not as easy as making synthetic dyes in terms of the storage, the efficacy, and so on. So definitely there is one area in going back to basics. The other one that I see in the chat question was the use of natural fiber. Meaning that, instead of just using the normal cotton and silk, we can try to use the fiber from our agricultural products in going back to basics. Just like the Filipinos are using pineapple fibers, we can use banana fibers and so on.
And bamboo?
And bamboo, definitely that's a very good suggestion in making bamboo. And of course, the wax itself, in going back to basics, whether we can use natural wax instead of the fossil fuel-based wax, because if we were to do a life cycle assessment, that can, spike up our carbon footprint and so on. So in brief, that's the immediate thing that we can do to encourage natural sciences.
And I hope we will get funding for this.
Yes.
The problem is always funding. So, Edric, there's a lot of potential, you see, in the different natural materials. But you said that the batik, in order to produce all this, we should organize ourselves. Okay, so I think we can organize ourselves, but don't you think that somebody should, or some organization should put in place a strategic and systematic effort, or initiative to identify what these plants are? Of course, there's research, which Prof. Nick Mariam mentioned, but in terms of planting those, shouldn't there be some national effort to see what those plants are in order to help the batik industry?
Yes, I think so, Prof. You see, the thing is that the initiative was started several years ago with Yayasan Budi Penyayang, the ministry. And I think this is the next leap of taking it forward after this Batik week and all that we have deliberated, and now we've got all the industry players coming together, all our expert panelists today. Your points are very well appreciated by me. I also want to share that there are also new research and applications that's happening. Kraftangan Malaysia has developed Batik Linut using the sago flour as an alternative to using wax, and it is already successfully done in Muka by one of our craft enterprise under Diana Rose, producing Batik Linut. So there are new things that is happening, and there are new alternatives to cotton and silk, which are cheaper and which are also beautiful and also sustainable. I am now using Tencel, T-E-N-C-E-L, as an alternative to cotton because it is like bamboo silk, right? And bamboo is not a silk anyway. It's just that the feel of it is like silk, and so the market calls it bamboo silk. So I think there is also, as the changing fashion trends and appreciation, there is a need to educate the public on what is the trend of new fibers, new textures, as you say, new designs, and the colors of the season. Of course, here we don't have the different seasons, so we are always one season all year round. But the taste of Malaysians for batik would differ from the taste of batik in Indonesia or in Thailand or anywhere else in the world. But one thing, one color remains constant, the color indigo, the color blue. Blue and white, like what you're wearing, Prof. What you're wearing is constant and it is appreciated all over the world. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. And that takes us to 11:42, which means we are already 12 minutes, exceeding the time. But of course, we came in late by 10 minutes, so I'm sure the organizers will forgive us. But there are some questions there. I think you can see that in your chat. Maybe you could answer them, and I think in the question and answer is something about digital printing technology, if you like, and I think the organizers can help you answer those questions as well. We just don't have time. Anyway, on behalf of the conference, the Batik Week, I'd like to thank our four esteemed speakers who have brought their insights into the issue of science, using science for batik and going back to nature. So once again, thank you very much. And I think we all, as panelists, also will thank Maida for having thought about this particular topic. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the excellent moderating, Yang Berbahagia, and your insightful points, panelists. It was absolutely illuminating to learn that the Malaysian batik industry is also part of conservation and preservation of our country's heritage, as has been consistently advocated by the government. The nature of the industry also embodies environmental, social, and governance, or ESG principles. Exploring how technology can be applied to the batik making process is also in keeping with Malaysia's IR 4.0 aspirations, together with, of course, opening opportunities for investment in diversifying batik products. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now segue to a video by the Department of Standards Malaysia, or Jabatan Standard Malaysia, which highlights the quality criteria for Malaysian batik based on Malaysian standards, or MS 692. For your information, MS 692 includes specifications for handcrafted batik, which also goes into definitions, material requirements, specifications, techniques, processes, test methods, and labeling of all textiles defined as Malaysian batik. The objectives are to ensure the quality of Malaysian batik and to help uplift skills and competency of craft makers in order to better market Malaysian handicraft locally and internationally. The MS 692 can also be purchased via www.msonline.jsn.gov.my. And now, let's take a look at the video. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We now proceed swiftly to Forum 2 on the topic Malaysia Batik Production Embraces Technology. Our moderator is none other than Yang Berbahagia Dato' Lila Muhammad Ali, President of Malaysian Batik Association and Chief Executive Officer, Yayasan Budi Penyayang. Over to you, Yang Berbahagia.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. We have arrived at Batik Week. Thank you, Maida, for thinking of organizing this Batik Week. My forum has a very positive approach. The theme is Malaysia Batik Production Embraces Technology. And I hope the discussion will also take a very positive trend. With me, there are panelists who have a very good understanding of batik production in Malaysia. They are practitioners themselves. So I hope at the end of this forum, we will find out where we can apply technology to improve the production of Malaysian batik. I also like to say from the start that participants can answer questions after each panelist has had their say over 10 minutes. We may not be able to answer all your questions, but please feel free to send in your questions, and I hope that the panelists will oblige by answering your questions in a written form. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to Maida, to my colleagues at Persatuan Batik and at Penayang, and also to Kraft Tangan Malaysia for making it possible for us to have this Batik Week. To the panelists, the 5 panelists I have, I say thank you very much for spending your time this morning with us. Allow me first to introduce Tuan Haji Shafi'i. He owns Nozi Batik from Terengganu. He's also the president of the Batik Entrepreneurs Association Terengganu, and he's also an active committee member of the Malaysian Batik Association. Next to Tuan Haji Shafi'i is Nick Faiz, Nick Amin. He's a batik entrepreneur and also a batik producer. He's the owner of the brand Gahara Galore Sendirian Berhad. That's the name of his company as well. Next to him is Yus Faizal. Yus Faizal is the owner of Kaki Batik Enterprise, a very skilled batik maker. This you see on the screen is Nick. That was Tuan Haji, and now you see Yus Faizal, okay? And his brand is, of course, Kaki Batik. Yus is indeed a very skilled batik maker himself. Next to him is Masrina Abdullah, the first winner of the Piala Sri Indon ever. She's an architect, but who was turned into a batik maker. And she's the owner of Masrina Abdullah Empire Ventures. And last but not the least is Taufik Hussein, who is an entrepreneur, and he carries the brand Bujin. Of course, he's a kind gentleman helping a batik maker thrive in his business. So without further ado, as I said, each of you will be allowed 10 minutes. Hopefully a minute before your time is up, we will signal you. Then you have to stop. After the 10-minute session, we will allow participants to ask you questions. And please be kind enough to answer their questions. Thank you very much. Without further delay, Tuan Haji Syafiee.
Ya, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Selamat pagi. Terima kasih kepada Datuk Lela, moderator. Terima kasih kepada Puan Najihah dan Kakak Maida yang begitu bersungguh dalam menjayakan program dan Forum Batik Week 2021. Dan terima kasih kepada Datuk Lela sebagai pengurusi Batik Malaysia yang begitu prihatin ke arah untuk pembangunan di dalam industri batik di Malaysia. Itu juga peranan daripada Budi Penyayang, MIT, FMTA, keras tangan yang sama-sama terlibat di dalam menjayakan program yang mana bagi saya lah julung-julung kalinya diadakan bagi mendekati secara terus kepada pengusaha batik tradisional dalam forum ni. Saya Haji Syafiee bin Ghazali adalah seorang pengusaha batik tradisional dan memiliki syarikat sendiri iaitu nama Nozi Batik syarikat saya. Yang mana saya telah tubuhkan hampir 30 tahun lepas dah. Jadi sebelum menceburi bidang ini secara langsung, saya hanya merupakan seorang peniaga batik dan sentiasa berhubung dengan pengusaha-pengusaha yang pembuat batik di sekitar Terengganu bagi mendapatkan bekalan untuk dipasarkan. Adakala bekalan tersebut tak cukup untuk saya membuat pasaran dan sekaranglah untuk saya meneruskan perniagaan. Oleh kerana itulah bekalan tak mencukupi, saya terpaksa mengambil peluang untuk membuat dan membuka sendiri kilang perusahaan batik bagi menampung permintaan pada sekitar tahun tersebutlah lebih kurang dalam 90-90-an. Saya dibesarkan di persekitaran perkampungan pengusaha batik dan boleh dikatakan setiap hari saya terdedah kepada industri ini. Kejap kecil lagi saya kejap kecil lagi dalam batik lah saya. Jadi saya juga merupakan pengurusi Persatuan Batik Negeri Terengganu. Jadi dalam industri ini, satu-satunya warisan dan pengeluarannya atau cara pembuatannya adalah sepenuhnya secara tradisional. Jadi bagi saya ia amat mudah dan menyenokkanlah. Sebab apa di kalangan membuat batik ni, bila kita dah minat, saya pun minat, jadi senang untuk menghayati industri batik. Jadi selain itu, saya memang telah melalui dan berpengalaman dalam pasaran dalam bidang ni. Jadi amat mudahlah bagi saya untuk memulakan perusahaan inilah. Jadi dulu saya bermula dulu dengan 4 orang pekerja sampai pembantu dan sekarang masih lagi mempunyai pekerja seramai 50 orang untuk membuat pengeluaran. Jadi di sini saya ingin berkongsilah sikit dengan you all semua bagaimana cara-cara dalam untuk membuat proses batik tradisional ni. Jadi saya ingin berkongsilah ya. Jadi dalam proses pertamanya kalau nak buat batik dia memerlukan seorang pencanting lah untuk mencanting batik. Jadi pencanting ni amat perlu kepada kemahiran untuk melukis desain atau corak, mendapatkan lakaran yang terbaik. Ia juga bergantung kepada cara penggunaan canting, dengan saiz canting, dengan kepanasan liling. Itu adalah kemahiran daripada bidang pencanting itu sendirilah. Jadi di sini memerlukan kepada tenaga mahir untuk mencanting. Jadi proses yang kedua kita pergi kepada membelok. Membelok ni satu kaedah tradisional. Cara menyiapkan dulu desain atau corak pada sarang blok yang telah disiapkan oleh tukang pembuat blok. Jadi blok ini akan diterak di atas meja yang direka khas dengan peralatan dapur dan palung serta kuali bagi menggunakan kaedah membelok. Jadi proses yang ketiga adalah mewarna. Apabila fabrik yang sudah diblok atau dicanting, maka proses mewarna pula dijalankan. Proses ini amat mudah sahaja jika dibandingkan dengan proses mencanting. Boleh dikatakan bidang mewarna ini senang untuk dapatkan pekerja. Proses keempat yang mengeringkan. Jadi fabrik yang telah diwarna akan dibiarkan kering secara manual, iaitu dibiarkan di pemidang sehingga betul-betul kering. Proses pengeringan ini amat cepat pada musim panas dan memakan masa yang panjang pada musim hujan. Di sini akan timbul masalah kerana pengeluaran akan tersekat dan lambat untuk menunggu fabrik ini betul-betul kering sebelum dimatikan warna. Proses yang kelima, mematikan warna. Fabrik yang sudah betul-betul kering akan dimasukkan ke dalam sodium silikit untuk mematikan warna, dan proses ini mengambil masa lebih kurang 4 hingga 8 jam bergantung kepada kepekatan warna yang kita gunakan. Jadi proses yang keenam, membasuh. Jadi fabrik yang telah diangkat dari sodium silikit akan dibasuh terlebih dahulu bagi membuang silikit dan warna yang terlebih bagi membersihkan fabrik daripada sisa tersebut. Kita pergi pada proses membuang lilin, proses yang ketujuh. Bagi proses ini, fabrik akan direbus atau dicelur di dalam kuali atau periuk yang mengandungi air panas dan campuran soda, es dan sabun untuk memudahkan untuk menanggal lilin dari hasil canting dan blok. Jadi selepas proses membuang lilin itu, proses menjemur, fabrik yang telah siap dibersihkan, dijemur untuk proses mengering dan sedia untuk dipasarkan. Itulah proses-proses yang kita perlu lalui dalam proses membuat batik secara tradisional. Jadi saya amat sayang pada industri warisan ini dan akan tetap terus memeliharanya. Ya. Jadi walau bagaimanapun saya memikirkan dan cadangkan bagi membantu dan menambah satu kaedah lagi dalam bidang canting bagi perusahaan batik tradisional yang kini amat kurang memiliki tenaga mahir dalam bidang mencanting. Jadi saya memikirkan kaedah ini kita perlu macam mana untuk membantu. Jadi cadangan saya adalah untuk menambahkan teknologi mencanting. Teknologi ini adalah seperti yang pertama, kita gunakan kebolehan kita melukis ini, kita gunakan kepada komputer, kita melakar pada komputer. Jadi komputer ini akan arahkan robot yang dipasangkan alat canting bagi melakarkan desain pada fabrik. Jadi komputer ini akan arahkan kepada robot untuk mencanting pada canting yang dipasangkan pada fabrik tersebut. Jadi alat pemanas pada pencanting itu boleh dikawal mengikut saiz canting dan fabrik yang digunakan teknologi. Teknologi ini hendaklah betul-betul boleh digunakan bagi membantu pengeluaran dengan cepat dan bermutu tinggi. Jadi teknologi ini hanyalah sebagai membantu menambah kekurangan tenaga mahir yang sedia ada, dan amat penting dengan teknologi ini, ianya tidak akan mencacatkan atau mengurangkan nilai warisan kita. Jadi nilai warisan batik ini walaupun kita gunakan teknologi mencanting, jadi nilai-nilai itu masih ada dan masih lagi terpelihara sebagai nilai warisan dan batik tradisional. Jadi berdasarkan pengalaman saya selama ini dalam industri batik tradisional, saya dapat rasakan di mana akan berlaku kekurangan tenaga mahir dalam bidang mencanting atas sebab-sebab tertentu. Jadi kita akan berlaku kekurangan. Jadi atas usaha di atas teknologi ini tidak merubah apa-apa nilai warisan, jadi kita akan teruskan kepada teknologi yang akan dicipta. Jadi itulah harapan saya sebagai pengusaha untuk mendapatkan teknologi yang betul-betul dapat menjaga pengeluaran dan menjaga juga warisan. Jadi sebelum saya undurkan diri, saya ingin sarankan kepada mereka teknologi agar sebelum mencipta robot pencanting tersebut supaya berbincang dan ambil pandangan daripada pengusaha batik tentang cara yang diperlukan untuk mencanting supaya robot yang dicipta itu dapat memenuhi kriteria yang macam mana yang pengusaha canting ini perlukan. Jadi begitu jugalah di dalam untuk menambah dengan cara pengeringan fabrik yang telah dibuatkan supaya cepat kering walaupun pada musim hujan. Jadi teknologi dalam proses ini wajar diciptakan juga supaya pengeluaran dapat terusan dan tidak tersekat. Jadi kedua teknologi ini amat penting di dalam pengurusan pengeluaran produk. Jadi sekali lagi saya sebelum mengundurkan diri, saya sekali lagi ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada Puan Najah dari Maida dan Datuk Laila kerana memberi kepercayaan kepada saya bagi mewakili seluruh pengusaha batik tradisional dalam forum Batik Week ini 2021. Jadi saya ucapkan banyak terima kasih lah kepada semua. Jadi berilah sokongan kepada batik tradisional dan warisan batik kita ini untuk selama-lamanya. Jadi itulah saja apa yang dapat saya kongsi dalam forum ini. Dan sekali lagi terima kasih banyak-banyak. Terima kasih Datuk Laila. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Tuan Haji. That was very interesting. By the way, the translation of his script is available, yeah, if you need it. And it looks as though he went through the processes and suggested which can have technology applied to it. I shall move on now and invite Nick Faiz to address us. Thank you, Nick Faiz.
Hello, hi, good afternoon. Now it's exactly 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Selamat tengah hari, salam sejahtera. My name is Nick Faiz Nimoman. I'm the founder and managing and creative director for Gahara, which we have a few labels of brands under Gahara, and the most prominent one is Rus Gahara. So thank you very much, Dato' Lila, and thank you to Maida for having me here. I'm very excited to share about what can we do in embracing technology in the next generation of our Malaysian batik. So Gahara is a brand that has been in the market for the past 15 years. And maybe you can go to the next slide. Where a little bit about the name. When I started this, I created the brand Rus Gahara first when I was 12 years old. And then the reason why I use that name, because of Gahara means pure descent, and I want to create a more, intimate business, or is more into the products of family or something that is actually in my blood, because I'm the third generation of batik maker. And then I would like to create something that people can appreciate and accept, even in the global level. So it's not only about the market in Malaysia alone or in Kelantan alone. And when I started this business, I started in Kuala Lumpur when I was studying in there, and the thing expands and progressed. So next slide, please. And when I started creating my own brand, the first thing that came into my mind is that I need to create something that can be a statement piece. So I went into studying in architecture, and then I went into observing of what has been around in the past 10 years or in the past 15 years. When I was still a kid though, because my grandfather was doing batik, and then my uncles, it's not my parents don't do business of batik, but my uncles were in the business of batik, and then they were doing the products that is available in the market during that time. So I thought that I need to create something that can be a real statement piece that can represent Kelantan batik very well. So I was not being too ambitious to create something that Malaysia will appreciate, but of my locality. So that's when I came into a few questions when people ask, what is the difference between Indonesian batik and Malaysia batik? And then when you talk about batik, of course, it was about the idea of, when people, the global citizen talks about batik, they will relate to Indonesia. So that was actually the thing that I think is something not right, but not to say something not right, but it's something that we can work on as the batik producer or purveyors. So that's when I started thinking of creating my own signature piece, and I went into exploring the wood carving. And from that wood carving, I created a product of mine that I call Rus Gahara product. And then it was since 2012 when I create a storytelling. That's why we call it a batik romance, into our inspiration of 2012. And then that was actually the first time when I started promoting or presenting Ketamguri collection that was used in the Lankasuka era, and that it was actually a 300 years old motif. So talking about embracing technology, this is actually the part when I started using technology into my creation, because technology can actually speed up some process of design, because I was in architectural school and then I studied about the process or the steps of design that I will go through when I create one masterpiece. So that's when I start embracing technology and then try to adopt a few softwares to be used in my creation of the collection. And then this is one example of them. And then I develop further, and then continuing with the techniques of coloring that I learned from my uncles and my grandfather, and also the few other techniques that I learned when I was going around. Like I went to Japan, and then I get to see how Japanese shibori is made, and how Indonesian design techniques is applied on their creation, and India and whatnot. Next slide, please. So this is what the outcome of my collection, not only on the fabric, but we also explore on the fashion, on the formation of the batik. So we don't really go about creating batik for baju kurung and kebaya and whatnot, but we try to go beyond that and then try to create something that everyone can wear. So on the different market segments, of course, our main target is the well-traveled locals, if not foreigners, and also those who really appreciate the art of batik. Because I wouldn't want to add up on the embellishments of diamonds or beads and whatnot to embellish that fabric, because batik itself is beautiful as it is. So this is some of the collections that we have portrayed and presented to our customers. Next. And Rus Gahara is actually promoting on the three main segments, which is the Yadish, the fabric collection, and also our art to wear. This is actually the name, art to wear is actually the name that was given to me or adopted by me from Prof. Nik Mahiran, who were presenting before. And because this is very interesting to say that, you know, we have art, we have ready to wear, but this is something, an art piece, it's something real for us to be wearing it on the runway or on the everyday life of us. So when I mention art to wear, people has to understand that not every single piece will be the same, because, you know, talking about SKUs, the commercialization, these are the things that batik cannot compromise on. And the third category that I have is the home collection or decoration items, interior items and everything related to that. Because for some market, they don't really wear colors and patterns on their body, but instead they will have to have it on the curtains, on the tablecloth, on the cushion covers and everything. All right, next. And Rus Gahara has been featured in many of the international magazines and TV stations and platforms. I just want to highlight a few where we were presented in the Vogue magazine, and also the British Tatler, and also TLC, Passage to Malaysia, where this is actually a TLC group came about to talk about something about contemporary art of Malaysia. So that's when they choose Rus Gahara to be the feature. And Denise Kyler was actually kind enough to speak to us and you know, use our fabric. So actually, this is when I think our creation has been well acknowledged by the international eyes, because, yeah, not to say that we are going too loud in terms of our creation, but we let the artwork speak by itself. All right, next. Okay, and then again, coming into the Rus Gahara collection, each and every piece of our creation will have the story of its own. So again, being a fashion designer, as you know, even though I don't really like to call myself as a fashion designer, because you know, I don't really do fashion, but you know, fashion and textile has to go along. So this is the thing that we create in order for us to, you know, to be close to the consumers, because sometimes consumers don't really understand what can we do with this collection. So I created a fashion line, and but our principle is not to go over the board in terms of exploring on the fashion, but instead we will explore on the design of the fabric itself. So in terms of the technique of coloring, in terms of the placement, motif composition, patterns, and everything, those are the things that we master on. And then we try to relate that to the storytelling, because a one piece of fabric will be more valuable if it comes with a narration. Similarly to the artworks of paintings and sculptures and everything. So these are the things that I think is best for me to explore on. Next. Alhamdulillah, Ruzgahara has been exploring the global market since 2011 when we start pushing in our new collection. Before that, I was being a trader, taking batik from my uncles, and then brought it to few different markets. But starting from the 2011, when I have my very own collection, especially using the Ketamburi motif, the world saw us. And of course, with the Malaysian government, including MIDA and a few other government agencies who have promoted me and then pushed Ruzgahara to the international level. So we were parading in Paris, in New York, in Frankfurt, San Francisco, and everything.
You have overrun your time, right? I can remind you.
Okay, thank you. So next, please. All right, and then as I was saying, Moscow, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, and New York. Next. Okay, so I guess because our topic is about this Malaysian batik production, embracing the technology. So what I want to share here the most is about how do we promote or how do we adopt technology in our creation. That is on the design techniques. And of course, we have to explore on the production as well. So later on, there will be a few other presenters to talk about that, and then we can come to the point of conclusion when we can see which segment we can actually go the most when it comes to adopting technology in our batik creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. But the whole little episode, I hope the other panelists also will be aware that we're talking about embracing technology. From what Nick has just said, I think there was a suggestion that software can be used for designing. I wish you had shared the names of some of the software or discussed what type of software. Perhaps in the absence of all that, we can suggest that the batik makers Google maybe for some ideas.
Sure.
So the other panelists, as a moderator, can I remind you that your focus should be your suggestions. Like Tuan Haji just now had suggested that if technologies want to automate and they want to use computers, robots to help with chanting, his main idea was consult us, the makers of batik, and we will give you the relevant input so that your creation and your embracing of technology will be meaningful and functional for the batik maker. So can I move on now to use? Ingat ya, use, the idea is cadangan penggunaan teknologi dalam proses-proses. Ya, macam Tuan Haji tadi, Tuan Haji telah cadang supaya teknologis ataupun ahli teknologi selalu berbincang dengan pembatik supaya teknologi yang dihasilkan bolehlah berguna pada pembatik. Terima kasih, Yus, dijemput. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Okay, first thing I would like to thank to MIDA as an organizer and CEO of Yayasan Penyayang, Datuk Lela, also President of Malaysia Batik Association, for inviting me, our panelists and guests. Good afternoon. Allow me to speak in Bahasa Malaysia. So I will speak in Bahasa Malaysia. Okay, next. Next, please. Okay, untuk kita nak tahu apakah teknologi yang boleh kita apply dalam proses batik. Sebelum tu kita mestilah mengetahui apakah yang dibolehkan atau apa yang tidak dibolehkan. Sudah semestinya jika teknologi diadaptasi dalam proses batik, ianya akan mengupgrade the batik processing, ataupun dia akan meningkatkan keluaran produk menjimatkan masa, menjimatkan tenaga, menjimatkan kos. Okey, apa yang tidak boleh di-applykan teknologi di dalam proses batik jika identiti batik itu hilang. Juga wax itu digantikan dengan the wax is replaced with another material, seperti contoh bahan-bahan lain lah. Okey, dan tidak lagi jika teknologi itu tidak lagi melalui proses-proses yang selalunya dibuat seperti mengering, merebus, melilin, itu tidak bolehlah kita nak adaptasi teknologi dalam proses batik itu. So teknologi juga tidak boleh, jika diwujudkan, tidak boleh menyusahkan ataupun menyukarkan untuk industri pengusaha-pengusaha kecil dalam industri batik. Dan ianya akan memberi kelebihan kepada kita punya pesaing seperti kilang-kilang besar printing tekstil. Okay, next. Okay, ini ada antara kelebihan dan kekurangan jika batik ataupun batik maker menerima teknologi dalam proses membatik lah. Okay, next. Okey, apa yang batik maker mahukan, apa yang pembuat batik mahukan, kita bagikan kepada dua, daripada segi kehendak fizikal dan juga daripada segi kehendak biologi. Okey, seperti saya as a batik maker, so saya inginkan produk saya kelihatan cantik, proses yang dibuat dengan mudah, keadaan bengkel yang selesa dan bersih. Dan kita ada banyak masa untuk membuat production, supaya dengan adanya teknologi itu kita ada banyak masa untuk membuat production, dan kita ada menerima idea-idea baru dan juga versi-versi baru. Dari segi kehendak biologi, kita dah semestinya bila adanya teknologi kita akan menerapkan penerapan mesra alam ataupun eco-friendly, dan di mana clean water after boiling process tu kita dapat mengurangkan pencemaran alam sekitar dengan membuang sisa-sisa kumbahan ataupun sisa-sisa air rebusan lilin. So tidak ada lagi dengan dari segi kehendak biologi, tidak ada lagi lilin-lilin yang diguna pakai dibuang di tepi-tepi. Saya sebagai batik maker, saya tahu pengusaha batik kebanyakannya memang lilin yang telah digunakan ataupun lilin yang direbus, apabila dia timbul dia akan buang lilin-lilin tu. Hanya setengah saja yang akan menggunakan balik. Nanti saya akan share apa yang kita boleh buat, dan dari segi biologi juga kita pembatik inginkan kehidupan yang lebih sihat lah. Okay, next. Next please. Okay, ini ada antara teknologi yang ada dalam industri batik, terutamanya dari negara seberang kita, Indonesia. Saya ada tulis itu, dia image source daripada kebanyakan universiti di sana lah. Okay, next please. Next slide please. Next. Okay, ini pun antara salah satu contoh mesin-mesin automasi yang telah diwujudkan, dan kita boleh lihat juga ada macam contoh mesin Butimor ni dibuat oleh Universiti Gajah Mada dari Indonesia, dan Universiti Islam Indonesia ada membuat pantograf cantik. Next. Okay, apa yang menariknya dalam gambar yang saya kongsikan ini dari Indonesia, so dia masih walaupun menggunakan teknologi elektronik, dia ini masih kalau kita lihat di bawah sana ada periuk lilin, so dia masih mengekalkan the beauty of process tu sendiri, the beauty of batik process tu yang wax sebagai medium asas menggunakan batik. Okay, next. Next please. Okay, next. Ini adalah antara fixed machine yang di negara kita juga ada. Okay, next please. So, okay, I akan share from my view and my research as a batik maker. Okay, next. Apa yang saya lakukan, apa yang Kati Batik lakukan, kita melakukan batik cantik, batik blok dan batik screen. Tetapi saya melihat stamping batik ni boleh di-apply dalam proses batik dengan lebih cepat. Okay, next please. Ini salah satu diversity lah, kepelbagaian dalam teknik membatik. Okay, next please. Okay, ini salah satu contoh saya menggunakan batik tayar, mengambil tekstur yang ada di tayar, di daun atau di apa saja, kerana batik Malaysia kita tidak terhad, tidak terhad dengan motif-motif tertentu. Sebab itulah batik kita ni maksudnya lebih kepada kaedah lah, kaedah membatik. So okay, next. So teknologi yang perlu ada adalah tidak mengganggu lah the beauty of the process tu sendiri. Okay, ini di antara salah satu contoh saya research menggunakan span dan menggunakan bahan-bahan lain untuk memberi kesan kepada span tu sendiri. Okay, next. Okey, ni antara salah satu saya akan menggunakan ubat nyamuk untuk membuat motif-motif yang boleh diefekkan, boleh diberi kesan kepada kain. Dan mungkin kita boleh ada satu mesin yang multifunction heat pen set seperti yang tertera dalam gambar raja. Okey, next. Okey, ni different between wooden stamping block dengan copper stamping block. Okey, next. Okey, apa yang saya nak tunjukkan di sini ialah sponge block tu. Sponge tu sendiri boleh menggantikan jugalah wooden ataupun metal block. Okay, next. Okay, mungkin span yang saya maksudkan ni mungkin boleh ditambah baik kerana saya membuat proses tu menggunakan tangan saja. Jadi mungkin kita boleh tambah nilai dengan polymer holder ataupun saya ada buat rujukan sikit gambar raja di bawah tu daripada craft tangan Malaysia sebenarnya. Ada di mana alat tu dibuat di Konica Minolta lah, 3D printing. Mungkin polymer holder ni boleh dijadikan tambah nilai kepada stamping tu. Okay, next. Okay, ni adalah gambaran idea di mana dengan adanya kalau ada mesin macam ni seperti ni, kita stamping dan span tu boleh digunakan pakai diulang-ulang. Mungkin kita boleh tukar kalau nak design A kita tukar di bawah dia, kalau nak design B kita tukar di bawah dia. Mungkin kita boleh fikirkan apa yang boleh dibuat kan. Okay, next. Okay, ni antara efek dia lah kesan sebenarnya sama je efek dia dengan batik block, batik canting. Ni 100% totally pakai span lah. Okay. So ni antara kelebihan dia, ada masalah dia. Jika kita menggunakan span tu mungkin span tu tidak tahan lama dia akan dalam 10 lay 15 lay dia akan dah lembek lah. Okay, next. Next slide. Antara research lain yang saya gunakan adalah recycle wax. Okay, next. Di mana recycle wax ni selalu ni lah yang saya maksudkan tadi, lilin yang direbus apabila timbul, kebanyakan batik maker tidak akan menggunakannya, dia akan dibuang di tepi-tepi bengkel. Okay, next. Okay, next. Ni adalah perbezaan lah recycle wax dengan lilin baru. Okay, next. Sebab banyak gambar jadi saya kena cepat. So lilin recycle ni dia akan terbagi kepada dua bahagian. Di bahagian bawah ada detergent dust dan di bahagian atas adalah lilin lah. Ni lilin ni akan timbul apabila kita melakukan proses boiling proses setelah semalaman kita tinggalkan. So lilin ni saya akan gunakan balik. Okay, next. Mungkin lilin ni lah seperti dalam gambar raja, saya akan mengikis di bahagian belakang supaya lilin yang keluar tu boleh saya gunakan balik dan dust of detergent ni akan diasingkan. Okay, next. Okay, next. Ni adalah testing kita testing on fabric. Okay, ni antara efek-efek yang saya gunakan lilin recycle. Kalau saya tak beritahu kepada anda semua, mungkin anda tidak tahu yang saya menggunakan lilin recycle. Okay, next. Okay, next lagi. Ini antara gambar saja. Okay, next. Ni antara dia punya faedah dia lah. Macam biasa, cost boleh save cost, save wax. Wax tidak digunakan, dia tidak membazir dan boleh can be used repeatedly. Boleh digunakan berulang kali. Dan dengan adanya teknik dengan adanya lilin ni boleh kita guna balik lah. Okay, ni just idea lah. Adakah mungkin kita boleh wujudkan teknologi mesin yang boleh mengasingkan lilin dan detergent dust tu sendiri. Okay, next.
Use time dah up use walaupun very interesting. Dah 10 minit dah. Ya.
Okay. Okay, just next ya. Okay, ni untuk pengeringan lilin recycle. Next. Ni mungkin gambaran idea yang boleh mewujudkan mesin tu. So dengan adanya teknologi mesin recycle wet, kita boleh menggunakan balik lilin-lilin yang terpakai dan boleh dibuat dalam keadaan bongkar-bongkar supaya supaya keadaan bengkel macam saya cakap tadi, physical one, dalam teknologi kita perlukan kebersihan, keselesaan, ruang yang bersih dalam bengkel. So beginilah salah satu contoh dia. Okay, mungkin itu sajalah saya dapat share. Ini just untuk dah. Okay, thank you.
Terima kasih Yus, nampak elok lah kerana you have shared lah whatever you have researched, yeah, and interesting juga lah. He has shown you how he has speeded up his process of printing, and hopefully more technology can be applied lah. But it's a very interesting sharing session. Thank you Yus. Now let's go on to Mas Rina, yeah. Mas Rina, please.
Thank you, Datuk. Okay, Assalamualaikum and good morning to our moderator, Datuk Lila Muhammad Ali, Chairman of Persatuan Batik Malaysia and CEO of Yayasan Budi Penyayang, Puan Najihah and Maida Secretariats, who have been working hard on this, all the panel speakers and distinguishable participants in this forum. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Masrina Abdullah from Masrina Abdullah Empire Ventures, and we are carrying a brand, Masterpiece by Masrina Abdullah. This brand is focusing both on exclusive, customized and exclusive pieces of batik, and also RTW, merchandise and soft furnishings. I am trained as an architect, but started doing batik almost immediately as I started my career in 1990. And from then on, I have been innovating various batik techniques, formulated document filing, and progress from one stage to another with technology as it progressed. At the same time, retaining the basic production resist method at its original form. Today, I will talk about how to market the finished product in batik, incorporating with technology in few main categories by using digitalization process. Okay, first one, okay, next please. Okay, this one, we are using a virtual gallery. What I show here is an exclusive batik yardage. Okay, it's very common that batik is produced freely by batik painters and produce a unique one piece, one design batik pieces. With digitalization, as we go more as online marketing, the involvement of photography and virtual studio manipulation is applied to create a clear and wider marketing. We can also create a pre-order shop by making a digitalized samples based on minimal amount of real batik pieces. With this approach, a limited collection can be made while retaining the exclusivity of the batik. And we can still control the exclusive pricing by doing, not just a one piece, but a limited edition pre-orders. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this one is OEM for other brand. I think many of us batik makers, besides having our own brand, part of the business is creating a collection for other brands. Okay, normally for developing a collection for other brand, marketing tools actually work even before the production take place. The marketing is very much on the initial discussion of the choice of materials, designs, colors, color formulas, motifs, etc. The outcome of this is a document that includes all the discussions and decisions made that will become a blueprint lead to the finished product. Once we achieve the blueprint, it will be used time and again to achieve a consistent and repeatable product. With the perfection of the document, it helps the client to plan their product diversification even before they receive their batik pieces, knowing they will get the consistent product based on the document. This helps reduce costs for future production, and the marketing can be much simpler. My first experience with this type of marketing is when Yayasan Budi Penyayang sent me to Venice, Italy in 2005 to collaborate with Roberta Di Camerino for Spring or Summer Milan Fashion Week, Summer Milan Fashion Week 2006. Thank you very much, Yayasan Budi Penyayang, for the opportunity, and it gives me a lot of learning curve actually. During this time, almost all production documents was made manually. And from there, we learned the process, and we have come far to incorporate digitalization in the process, except retaining the production, and definitely this paradigm shift had much simplified the marketing process. Okay, the visuals of the end product in this slide is our collaborative effort with a client in La Marina, Spain, where all communications involve online only to actualize a stint of autumn-winter 2020 and spring-summer 2021 collections. Okay, next slide, please. Next. Okay, next is how we are going to show how we make planning and managing system product for online platform or physical shop. Here I'm giving an example of my involvement with Zalora Malaysia, and our approach here is to get our products, in fact batik specifically, to all range of clients beyond range of price, beyond range of race. You know, we want to approach to get to reach as much as wide as possible to the market where batik can be accepted by all. So this one currently we still in the level of Malaysian market because our SKU is not big enough yet. Like for Zalora, for example, they need at least 100 SKU before we can go beyond borders of Malaysia, for example, Hong Kong, Singapore, or Philippines. Okay, in the planning, okay, we have to make a forecast for our apparel design. What are the sorts of collection that we want to make? So we begin by sketching the motifs on the apparel designs. And then we structure our production technique to get consistency and repeatable product. So, okay, I'm as a batik maker, I have the knowledge. I think like what Yus Faisal just mentioned just now is a very wide techniques that could be used. Okay, while retaining the original form, I'm looking actually this, I list down here few production techniques that can be used that actually can get the consistency. But this one also, we just like the OEM production, we need to have a proper document for everything. The design, the positioning of design, we have the location of each motif, everything, the color formulas, everything documented so that repeating the batik piece is effortless. So still goes with the blueprint of the document that we will make. Okay, we decide the production technique. Okay, here I list down, okay, this is examples of how we can decide what we want to do. Okay, for example, we use cold wax as block single or multicolor batik. That means it will look like just like batik block, you know, because but we have a bigger block. In that sense, the production can be faster, because we have to remember when we're going to tap a bigger market, we have to make sure that our productivity can meet the demand, because the 100% hand painting is quite slow and it might take much longer time. Okay, another one is cold wax as hand painting lines for hand painting color application. So this one, the end product will look exactly like the hand painted, but we actually already semi-mechanized by using the cold wax block. And then we can use hand block for single or multicolor batik, same thing like the cold wax, and hand block as a hand painting lines for hand painting color application. Okay, in both the cold wax and hand block, we actually can do a mix, you know, like partly block and partly hand drawn. Maybe just a little bit of hand drawn, which must be documented properly. But those hand drawn lines actually can give the subtle and softness, so it gives more quality and attitude towards our batik. Okay, another one is 100% hand painting, both wax and color. This one may be for your very exclusive products that we can put a quite high price. So this one, we can have a limited.
You have about 5 seconds left, yeah?
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is, okay, in any of the above process, we need digitalization blueprint to get desired consistency and repeatable outcome. From the blueprint, we will develop a mold or block, okay? And then we can have a blueprint library as time goes on, and that's actually we will repeat and use again and again. So in that sense, we actually very much simplified, and we don't have to memorize everything. Everything is more or less like a library. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is we create a virtual gallery just like the batik yardage. So we use, okay, like for example, to sell batik paintings, we manipulate the studio scene, the scenery, everything. To make it more interesting. Yeah? Okay, so I just want to get a little bit. Okay, software use is Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, Studio, and VN. Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Masrina. That was a very interesting presentation. So as you can see earlier on, this panelist spoke about the processes in batik making. Masrina has jumped ahead and she's talked about post production, and she's gone into marketing, how digitalization can be applied to marketing processes, and that was quite an interesting session. Now let's listen to Taufik, who is an entrepreneur. I guess he would also be talking about how to market the product. Thank you. Welcome, Taufik.
Thank you, Dato. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, everyone. Thank you for Maida for organizing together with Budi Penyayang, Satuan Batik Malaysia, Kraft Tangan Malaysia, and especially to everyone from all over the world. I saw people from Taiwan, I think, joining as well. So in the topic, if you can see that I partly removed the production, even though the topic is Malaysia Batik Production and Embraces Technology, because I'm going to talk a little bit about it at the end. But first, let me focus on the post-production of batik in terms of selling, marketing, and stuff. All right, let's go into it. Next slide. Should I say next slide? Okay, so what we are doing today, I mean, in the world, a lot of people are jumping into e-commerce, selling things online, and they say that, you know, we are going digital already by selling online. But in essence, going into digitalization, selling on e-commerce platform, for example, is just a part of a real e-commerce concept or ecosystem. Understanding the whole concept of e-commerce is very important for batik makers and also for batik distributors, sellers, in order to make this successful. So in batik, there is a personalization items, because most of the batik produced are custom or just one of a kind. There are also some batik makers that produce mass production, similar design, but the concept of personalization is very much entangled in e-commerce sector nowadays, because people, even though they want to buy things online at a cheaper price, but they still want to have that personalization. And then in e-commerce, there is a need of rich contents. Batik makers, producers, sellers need to have a lot of contents, good contents, good video, good images that they put in not just that specific e-commerce. For example, you are selling in a platform, you also need to be advertising on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok, and other places. So there need to be a lot of contents and rich contents, because customer would like to get that similar touch and feel of the batik that they can have in brick and mortar, but on online version. And then technology also. There are a lot of technologies today for e-commerce, very crowded. So batik makers, batik sellers need to be very familiar and engage in, for example, people who really are good in e-commerce. They don't have to do everything by themselves. They can outsource the selling process, the packaging process to other people in order to sell. So this will make technology adoption become easier. Next slide. And then design and the process of the e-commerce, not the batik, but the e-commerce must be user-friendly and suitable for all type of generations. And then nowadays, when we buy things online, people will be talking about what's your return process, what your return policy and stuff like that. Because people, as mentioned, people want to have that brick and mortar feeling where, if there's something wrong with the product, they can just go back and say, hey, this something wrong with my batik, and there's wax, something. They want to be able to get something out of it, like return or something. So this is something important in e-commerce as well, and very delicate, very hard for batik to be able to do. And then marketing optimization, talking about not just the selling process, but also the marketing side of it. The e-commerce store need to have product recommendation. You do cross-selling, and then they do A/B testing, rewards and loyalty programs, and SEO, and a lot of other things that optimize and help people with the marketing side. And then the e-commerce platform also need to have a mobile first or mobile friendly mindset when building it. For example, we are talking about there are 28 million smartphone users in Malaysia as of 2020, and then they're spending 9.17 hours online. So a lot of people are using smartphone to buy things and to go to see your products. So the design thinking must be, mobile first, or at least mobile friendly. Mobile first, even better. All right. And let's see some of the sales channel. Our Craft Tangan have the My Craft Shop. They are very crowded. Some people selling on Lazada, on Shopee. People who wants to sell in the US, they sell on Etsy, Amazon. And then Avana has a design that can, not really a platform, but not a marketplace. And then you can sell on Zalora, Souk Asia, Fashion Valley. Some people doing bidding on FB Live, Shopline similar to Avana. AliExpress focusing on the Asia market. Some like MBDA have their own fashion hub where they're selling fashion designers, clothing. Some batik producers are selling on that. So very crowded. You need to be able to choose the proper platform for your own product. All right. So here are the challenges for batik makers and batik sellers. Why is it very difficult for us to go online or to be digitized? Number one is especially the technology, because technology adoption is not something easy for most batik makers and sellers. As I mentioned before, there are too many technologies out there, and some of the makers especially are too deep inside the process of making the batik, so they don't have time to learn about the technology, because you can learn about technology, but sometimes it's not you are not well brief enough to really focus and know how to excel in this particular technology. And then the touch and feel. Batik, as you know, is partly fashion, partly art, and partly craft. So all of it together. So when people talking about art, about craft, they want to really feel the fabric, and look at it, the fashion, and that will, help them to decide what kind of batik, which one to buy and stuff. So they want to have, and this is consumer, they really want. So it's a bit difficult to sell on e-commerce when that happens. And then the limited quantity, we're talking about artisan batik makers. And I saw also the question online, we'll go to it later, asking about whether we have the capacity to produce. Of course, if there are a lot of, even though there are a lot of artisan batik makers together, like Yus, Ni, Masrina, together combining, let's say, to design a specific pattern, all of the design will not be the same. It can be similar but not the same. So it could be, customer might not like it. So that's a real challenge in that. And then there's also the supply chain problem where, understanding of item tracking, inventory management, all of these are very complex, and not all of batik makers and sellers know how to really work on this in order to, sell to bigger clients or more sophisticated clients. All right. And then my last thought on the next page, next two pages actually, other thoughts on the modernizing batik stuff. Here's the big chunk of it, because I talk about the marketing side, selling side of it. But in batik making, we are moving, always talking about IR 4.0, the need to move into the robotic processing, but we need to be talking in the angle that does not affect the artistic and craft side of batik making. I mean, we're not talking about, for example, just digital printing. You say you print batik, but as Dato Prof. Najib Dawah mentioned earlier, making batik is a process. So if we print the batik, where's the batik of it? It's just the talking about the design. Design is not batik. Batik is in the process. So there needs to be a real, thought about how do we go into robotic processing, IR 4.0, without affecting this effect. Like Haji Shafi'i mentioned about, having robotic arm doing the batik. That can be a process that can help in the IR 4.0 among it. And then another thought is about environment. While sustaining the craft for future generation is very important, we also need to think about the world, because in the investment today, and talking about the
left, yeah.
Yes, yeah, no problem. I'm on time, inshallah. And the environment, we need to be taking care of our world. SDG 17 has enlightened what are the things that we need to really take care of. Especially batik making is a very, very using a lot of water and also chemicals. So we need to have machineries, robotic, that can help us to decide and to really make sure that we take care of the environment while making and selling batik for the world, because we are taking care of the heritage. And then the identity. I think there is a need for fresher identity of Malaysian batik, combining modern arts with craft. That needs to be thought of before we go about modernizing it. Thank you so much from Bujins Batik.
All right. Thank you very much, Taufik. That was very interesting. So you actually extended on what Masrina had said earlier. Now, let's go on to the questions. From the list of questions I see, I think, Taufik, you've answered one. The question was, is our local batik supply suffice for export, although by multiple makers? You answered that question, okay? Now, there's another question from the chat room. Is there any national inspiration of Malaysia batik design, fashion, and creation? Would any of you want to answer before I make an attempt at answering? I repeat, is there any national inspiration for Malaysia batik design, fashion, and creation?
May I try to answer that?
You can try that.
Okay. Well, of course, when we talk about batik, it's a national legacy. So we as makers of batik has been trying very, very hard in giving the best identity for our Malaysia to the creation of our batik. taking, for example, as how Rus Gahara is approaching this segment, is that we try to use the motif from the ancient wood carving that really represents the culture, the identity, the lifestyle of our local people, especially in the Malay world in the past. So I guess with the others as well, even though we're doing chanting, of course, Bunga Raya has always been in our mind, and then all the other flowers, and also some people are doing batik that is based on the like wow or approaching in the colors that represents Malaysia well. So that's how we get into coming in with the very vibrant colors to represent the flag of Malaysia and a few other segments and approaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else? Masrina, would you like to attempt? Anyone else in the panel? Zeus, tak jawab tak apa inspirasinya? Ada ke? Ada ke?
Okay, okay. Before this, we share sikit.
Yeah?
Okay, before this, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, before this, before I buat buat kaki batik, so I as a textile designer, craft tangan Malaysia. So before this kita ada buat design design batik satu Malaysia, batik one Malaysia, and kita menggunakan motif-motif yang mewakili kaum-kaum yang ada di Malaysia lah, seperti contoh kaum Melayu, Cina, India, burung merak yang mewakili kaum India, motif-motif yang ada di Tanglong kita mewakili kaum Cina, dan motif-motif yang ada etnik di Sabah dan Sarawak. So sebelum ni kita ada buat lah. Thank you.
Masrina, you wanted to say something? You're muted.
I would like to talk about a little bit about the proprietary rights. Okay, I think it's quite important if you are doing, like just now I talked about the documents about repeatable and consistency of designs. But when it comes to exclusives, which you just do one piece, I think that part is, I can say, it's impossible. We had tried in the past even to patent a technique. I think it's too difficult also because there's rules towards it. So I think for those who wanted to patent theirs has to find out exactly how, because there's a lot of rules, like you cannot release your design first before, only when you see it's popular and to be copied only you want to patent, this is considered too late already. So actually there's way of doing it for a repeatable designs, or maybe like what Rus Gahara has, like a very specific motif that he's using, but something which is not ethnical, like something that you create, then it's okay. So that it becomes solely yours, very well, much of your identity. But still, so far, I think it's still difficult.
Thank you very much.
I add some to it. I think very interesting point by Kak Masrina. I also I add my last point in the slide also was asking provoking question about, do we need actually a new identity of Malaysia Batik, because we almost can say that we don't really have one identity. So with the technology that has come to our age, so maybe there is a need for us to combine this, like having design that we can say as Malaysia. When people look at it, it has an element of technology in it, for example, or modern, that people look and say, oh, this is Malaysian Batik. So we still keep some of the, still keep the batik, but on the design side, people can, see us as a different level of batik. So that's my idea to it.
Thank you very much. But would you all agree that the inspiration is unique to the person and the person's life experiences and the person's interests and what sort of is significant in that person's life, especially for artists? It's so difficult to say an inspiration comes from a particular source, especially today. If we are talking about technology, if you Google, if you learn to use all the software, you'll be so creative, and numerous designs can come out of that, of the software you're exposed to. Okay, let's move on to the next, another question. The question is quite interesting, but it's got to do with our policymakers. What would our policy makers do to help with developing local technology, as machines, mostly from other countries, are expensive? Machines are from other countries and they are expensive. So any reaction from you? This is your chance. What do you think our authorities can do? Anyone?
Yeah, I go first. I didn't mention about my background before, but I actually am a system and control engineer from Case Western Reserve University, Ohio, USA. So I'm not a Batik person, but an engineer actually. So in this sense, I think machine from outside of Malaysia is not expensive. They are mostly cheaper, but maybe the design and the understanding of batik making suitable for Malaysia is not designed. They are not designed that way. So there's a potential there for Malaysian producer of machineries, robotic, to do it the way where we custom to Malaysian need. So I cannot speak on behalf of the government, but of course there is this small gap that we can fill in using the companies in Malaysia that can, but need to have a talk together with the Satuan Batik, with the real batik makers, to see where we can fit in and to make that machineries that can serve the industry, not just one particular company, so that can be more sustainable.
Okay, good, Taufik. That's an idea. Anyone else? Mas Rina, do you have any comments?
Okay. Looking at the machine bought from overseas are expensive, I think it might be so. But actually we have but this one we're talking about machines, because if we want to use for our like machining that we talk about, Datuk, like to as a support system to the production, because we still want to maintain the production as the original way. I think fabricating could be expensive also, because it's like new machines and then produced in small quantity, everything. If we are talking about digital machine, which is not batik, because that one, I would say it is expensive, but if you have the market, it should be, it's a good solution actually.
From my point of view, after listening to all that our previous friends in the forum had to say and what Dr. Najib had to say, I think that the chances are we can find, the policymakers can help us, the Batik fraternity, whether it's through financial resources or otherwise. But we should emphasize that whatever they do, there is a role for the foreign investor and there's a role for the local investor. Money is involved, opportunities. Taufik pointed out there could be a foreign company that comes in, but let us be sure that there are roles for the foreign investor and the local investor, because this involves a lot of, I think we have always to remember the possibilities are vast right across the world. Many things can happen. We are open to a paradigm change and we are open to accepting, as our title suggests, Malaysia Batik embraces technology. And from what we have heard just now from you and from Tuan Haji and from you, Masrina and Taufik and Faiz, it's quite clear that we can embrace in the processes as well as in the marketing of the product. So let's remain open. Hopefully our policymakers and everybody else will join hands with this acceptance and make the real happen. Yeah. So there's one other question which doesn't really need to be answered actually, but I'll read the question all the same. Why is our batik not displayed glaringly at national major points? For example, KLIA and KLCC. Taufik, I think you should answer this question. Thank you.
Too expensive.
That's easy. 2 words. It's 2 words. So if we can get assistance, as we have mentioned, batik SME, small entrepreneurs, and so on. So the answer is too expensive. So I think the reply to that would be more support from people who can support. So there's no other
And
question.
demand lah, Dato'. I think demand needs to be more generated and
we have to work towards it. Okay. Any closing words from anybody? Our time is actually up. It's 1 o'clock. So may I, on behalf of all you 5 panelists, Tuan Haji Nozi has left. We say thank you very much to Maida for having taken the trouble to organize this Batik Week. And I think the Pembatik themselves also have helped towards making this a successful week. We look forward to more cooperation, more support, and perhaps seeing our missions achieved. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Lila and esteemed panelists. Such an incredible discussion, and it was our privilege to be a part of it. An essential conversation indeed, as till today, Batik production remains a traditional venture with little exposure in terms of introducing new perspectives while retaining time-honored traditions. We sincerely hope these essential conversations over Batik Week 2021 will contribute to revitalizing and flourishing Malaysia's Batik industry, preserving and nurturing our national heritage for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now take a look at the sneak preview of our upcoming program throughout Batik Week 2021. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for the slight technical difficulties on the video presentation earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you'll also be joining us throughout the week. And however, as we draw towards the end of day one, we now segue to today's lucky draw winners announcement. Right, so I will of course be calling out the names of everyone who's formed part of our lucky winners today. And here they go. The first winner of the day is Muhammad Rozi Ahmad. Second up, we have Tunku Nurul Nuzian. Thirdly, congratulations to Nasrin Agha Mohammadi. Our fourth winner of the day is Erli Katrina Muhammad Zulkifli. And last but certainly not least is lucky draw winner number 5. And that is Nuraimi Afzan Zakaria. Congratulations to all our winners. Winners, please contact the MIDA Organizing Committee to collect your gifts. Thank you once again to all our sponsors for your contributions and generosity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's of course been a rapid-fire agenda showcasing our most committed Batik industry stakeholders all the way from the morning right now until lunchtime. Congratulations to all the winners for the lucky draw. We would like to extend our deepest gratitude to all our esteemed speakers and moderators for lending us their expertise and insightful sessions. I would like to encourage all our participants, all 100 or so of you still with us today, to respond to MIDA's feedback survey form, which we will send via email post-event to help us improve on future virtual engagements. Before we adjourn, may I now kindly request for all participants to turn on their cameras for a Zoom group photo session.
I'm here. Zoom.
That's right. Kindly please turn on your video. Your audios can remain on silent, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Our technical team towards the back end will be organizing, and I'll call out for you when you can start smiling for the cameras. Let's take a group shot to remember this moment.
Okay.
All right. Are we ready on the back end to proceed? All right. If there are any speakers still not turning on their video cameras, may I kindly request for a last call to turn on your video cameras so that we may have a group shot together.
Gambiu lah. Asli apa ni?
All right. On the count of 3, 2, 1. If there are still any other of our speakers, perhaps Mr. Edric, Mr. Jikni Faisal, it would be wonderful if you could just turn on your cameras and we could just get a quick group shot. All right, let's have another picture on the count of 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to actually stay with us during that video as well as speaker session, for getting a little bit of a memory to take back with us after Batik Week 2021. Thank you all once again, ladies and gentlemen. We're so grateful for your presence and greatly appreciate your attendance in joining day 1 of Batik Week 2021. Please do also join us throughout this week for the remaining exciting lineup, all with the aim of revitalizing Malaysia's batik industry. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I'm Tamina Kauji, and it's been my pleasure taking you through today's proceedings. I'm signing off now on behalf of MIDA and wishing you all a good rest of the day ahead. Please take care and stay safe.
Yes.